Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Хотите жить – бегите. Хотите жить – сдавайтесь в плен. Россия не получит новую территорию Украины. Россия присоединит себя к той катастрофе, которую она принесла на оккупированную территорию нашей страны. Оккупант заполняет могилами захваченную территорию Украины. И все больше могил на территории самой России. Ценой того, что один человек в России хочет продолжать эту войну, кто хочет войны больше, чем жизнь. Ваши жизни, граждане России.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 561 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again on this tactical stream.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, or as we should start to call it, the war that is happening inside of Russia. The Ukrainians have been able to launch massive drone attacks over the past 24 hours and have been able to hit nearly every major city that the Russians have that is near the Ukrainian border area. We have videos from every single one of the attacks occurring at Bryansk, Kursk, and Rostov-on-Don, as well as a partisan attack that occurred within the city of Moscow itself. We're of course going to be covering that and all of the major news that we've been able to get from the front lines from the northeast all the way down to Kherson, and also some additional news of a very considerable and very expensive little loss that the Russians took at Zelenskyy port today. But moving on into the big news, the Ukrainians have launched a mass drone attack overnight against the Russian Federation, and the damage appears to have been somewhat considerable. The attack spanned over an incredibly large area, practically the entirety of the Ukrainian frontier inside of Russia, hitting the areas of Bryansk, Kursk, and Rostov-on-Don, all hitting their targets, and Russian air defense appeared to have been completely ineffective in taking down any of the drones that were coming in. The most video clips and evidence we got came from the city of Rostov-on-Don, which appeared to have been the largest of the attacks and probably the most important. Also, are we dealing with lag?
No, Don.
Oh, I thought you said, and I was like, oh no. But anyways, here is the first clip of one of the drones having exploded and its mushroom cloud. And that's the end of that little clip.
That's a nice explosion, Don.
Dude, we just get a little GIF right here on this one. Just a tiny little explosion, no noise or anything. But moving on into the next clip, we also got to see another video of the explosion. We can see it right there.
О боже.
They're doing a number on them.
They sure are, man. And I think the number is something along the lines of time's up. I don't really know what number it will be, but the Russians' time is running out. But we can also see another video here showing the fire smoldering after the drone attack. You see a little bit of thick black smoke coming up right where the mouse cursor is moving. And with that, that's the end of that clip. And moving on into the last one, we can also see the damage that was caused. From what we understand, the building seen behind the burned out car is a government building. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find out what kind of government building that was. So unfortunately, I can't really tell y'all what building was, well, what unit or part of the government was housed inside of that building, but we did get a better idea of what the targets were inside of Bryansk and Kursk. where attacks also occurred and a decent amount of damage was also inflicted. Inside of the city of Kursk, we got to see an explosion emanating from this area, and from what we were able to understand, this was hitting somewhere close to the FSB headquarters in Kursk again. This is about the second time that we've been able to actually confirm that an attack has hit the FSB building inside of Kursk, and it appears that the Ukrainians are putting a lot of effort into attacking the operational offices of the FSB near the Ukrainian border. And then when you see a dog move, like, dude, I don't know what it is with the explosions, but all of the explosions, it's always like they just have a dog attached to them, or it just spawns in the dog and it just goes wandering off in frame. There it goes. Cute little dog, though. But that's the end of that clip. Of course, we don't really get to see the explosion, but we do get to hear it. And by sound alone, we can clearly tell that was another explosion onto the FSB building. We got news, although we've never seen picture or video evidence of the actual target, that it was hitting the FSB building inside of Kursk. And also in Bryansk, it also appears that they were largely going for the same target: government institutions. Or more so, in this instance, a microelectronics enterprise. Once again, vital to the war effort, it's one of the few factories inside of Russia that's able to produce technological components that could be used in modern vehicles. While its abilities, from what we understand, aren't incredibly massive or profound, it still is a ability at all to produce any kind of electronics equipment, and so the hit, and of course the light amount of damage that was caused, will hopefully be hindering the Russian war effort in a small way. So we can see that the Ukrainian drone attack spanned across the entire border area today, inflicting a considerable amount of damage and, of course, ensuring that the Russians are going to be a little concerned about what's going to be going on in the future. Clearly, there is no air defense that has been set up in a consistent amount or a large amount in the entire area of the Ukrainian border region. And that's why we continue to see Ukrainian drones fly across the border and then practically to an unlimited range once they cross the Ukrainian border. There really isn't a lot of Russian air defenses inside of the Russian Federation, and we're only seeing now that massive amounts of air defenses are being brought in around the city of Moscow to hopefully stop the drones almost on the final leg to their target at that point. The only other place that we've seen a large amount of air defenses inside of Russia is also near Putin's summer mansion in the area of Sochi. Beyond that, doesn't really seem like there's a lot of air defense protection, but even if they were able to get air defense protection and try and stop a lot of these drone attacks from occurring and causing damage, there is something interesting to note that while that may stop the drone attacks, it's not going to be stopping the partisans at all. The partisans are just getting more and more brazen, and today they burned down an entire customs service building in Moscow. Here's the clip. When you see the fire raging inside of the customs service building over there, no fire brigade around. The fire's just going completely unstopped, and it's going to continue to burn the entire compound down. We now see a second clip where we can see the fire is consuming the entire service area. And we see a Russian on the phone, most likely calling the fire department, but the damage is already going to be done by the time the fire department gets there. The damage appears to have been somewhat considerable, and it is wonderful to know that Ukrainian partisans are doing everything they can to try and cause as much damage and as much devastation to the Russian war machine as physically possible. Customs service stations like that pose a massive target in wartime because they allow for the processing of goods from one location to the next. If it is destroyed, that means that the amount of goods that are able to move into Moscow or out of Moscow will be greatly decreased in amount because they will either have to go to other customs stations in the area, which will, of course, create longer queue times and, of course, less efficiency, or they just won't be able to move that cargo at all. But, of course, it's wonderful to see that the partisans are doing their job. I mean, I would hate to know that the partisans weren't doing their job because I feel like they're a little partisan to the work at hand. But it is wonderful to see that they are, of course, continuing their efforts and trying to hinder the Russian war machine in every single possible way, either massive or small. Moving on out of Russia, because that's really all of the breaking news of the day. We've already seen all four major bits of news, but of course, the Ukrainian attack inside of Russia with the drones is signaling that the Russians are incredibly weak. It's showing one thing that I think has been clear throughout the war, but we have to say it every single time. the Russians are being bled dry, equipment-wise, in this war. They had a decent amount of surface-to-air missile defense systems in their military before the war, but we're clearly seeing now that so many of these systems have been destroyed in Ukraine or are currently deployed inside of Ukraine to try and protect the Russian army, that there are no air defenses to spare for the actual Russian Federation. And the ones that we do see are incredibly few in number and in only specific locations that the central Russian government finds important to protect itself with. The protection doesn't extend into the rest of Russia, and we've seen the Ukrainians at this point practically strike everywhere they've wanted, and not only that, now they're striking along the entire border frontier, completely unstopped by the Russians. But moving on from that, speaking of air defenses being somewhat ineffective, even with Russian air defenses being inside of Ukraine in massive numbers, it doesn't really appear to be helping them all too much, especially with their most advanced and modern air defense systems. That money could buy the Russians. What we're about to be looking at is another $200 million radar system. This is the Predator E radar. This little system right here cost over $200 million for the Russians to get. That one truck right there is probably got to be one of the most expensive trucks on Earth. Of course, the U.S. military can outdo them at a single given moment. We can go find one if we need to. But this is one of the
mobile coastal over-the-horizon detection radar with enhanced stealth. Like the radar stealth, or it picks up stealth?
The radar is supposedly, from what I understand with what I researched earlier, its signature is a little bit more stealthy. Radars emit radiation, and how that works, at least as far as the radar being visible to everyone else, is that with anti-radiation missiles, like an AGM-88 HARM, if they are, like, say, 60 miles away, an AGM-88 HARM can actually pick up the radiation coming off of that radar, and then they can fire the AGM-88, and then it will start flying towards that radar. The Russians have an attempt, usually, to try and stop their radar from being destroyed. They can turn it off and hope that the AGM-88 doesn't end up slamming into the vehicle anyways, but nevertheless, the reason why this one is enhanced stealth, quote-unquote, is because this radar system emits far less radiation than other similar radar systems would. So it's technically enhanced stealth, but really what it is a lower power radar with a much farther range that, of course, extends over the horizon. It doesn't appear to have saved the vehicle, however. This thing was destroyed on the beach of Zelenskyy port. And if we go to that area on Google Maps, and I'll show y'all the area really quickly. So let me get down here to Zelenskyy port, while the map says it's having a problem, and of course, it has to have a problem. It's just normal for the map to have a problem at this point, so hopefully we can reload it. And here's Zelenskyy port, and hell, we could probably even find exactly where this thing is. So we see some kind of a little tower over here, and also, it actually appears that there might be a runway around that area. That kind of looks like a runway to me, but we're not seeing an airfield anywhere around here. So let's see if we can find a tower. Let's move on down the beach. It's certainly on the beach. And let's see here. I'm sure we're about to find it. La Playa. But anyways, moving on from there.
Hey, La Playa.
Hey, Playa. Dude, that thing ain't playing around anymore. It's just dead. But dang, dude, this place was crowded. Like, this is like apparently like the beach location for Ukrainians back before the war began. But let's see here. Man, I think we've gone down most of this beach. I have a feeling it was way over here on this side somewhere, but we can't really find the tower that's in the picture to be able to exactly geolocate where this system was, but it was on the beach at Zelenskyy port, and now it's a burned wreck on the beach of Zelenskyy port. It, of course, is no longer usable, and these radar systems cost $200 million apiece. That is about the cost of 2 Su-35 fighter jets, brand new. It's a fairly large loss for the Russians to take in a single system, and of course, it's going to be very difficult for the Russians to replace. The Russians don't have the money that they had at the beginning of the war, and even then, they didn't really have much. It took them a long time to even build up the Russian army into the force that it was pre-war, and now with incredibly devastating losses like these, like losing another $200 million over-the-horizon radar, they are going to be in a lot of trouble trying to get any usable radar systems into the battlefield any longer. They're running out for the large part, from what we understand, because vehicles like those didn't come by often in the Russian army. But speaking of vehicles like that and over-the-horizon radar around the area of the Dnipropetrovsk Gulf, we also saw a really cool video from Odessa. Of course, we covered yesterday that the Germans are now going to be producing through the Rheinmetall company more 35mm Oerlikon ammunition for the Gepards. Of course, that came as a huge shock to a lot of pro-Russians and also people who thought that ammo was a finite thing that can never be replaced, because according to everyone, the ammo was running out and there was going to be no ammo around any longer for the Gepards to operate with once the Germans ran out. And that is, of course, untrue. They're now producing it in larger numbers, from what we understand, enough to give it to the Ukrainians, and also enough for the Germans to possibly stockpile it to hand over to other nations in the future that may need the ammunition. We also saw a Gepard in Odessa shooting down a drone last night, once again showing that the Ukrainians, while awaiting more ammunition, still have enough ammunition to deal with the targets at hand. And so with that, here's the clip. Oh! Very nice!
Lovely.
And we see the drone going on down. And another kill for this Gepard. I gotta say, the flash from the guns at nighttime, Matthew, that's gotta make you blind, man. Like, you're sitting there and you're like, let's see here. Yes, I think the drone is out there in that distance. Fire a small ranging burst, please. Are we hitting it? I don't know, man. Everything's dark. I can't see. And then you just see that massive explosion in the distance. It's like, I think the sun's rising. Yes. But I gotta say, I love the Gepards. The Gepards are honestly some of the best anti-aircraft systems that have been given to the Ukrainians. Hell, some of the best anti-aircraft systems that are being used in this war. And of course, I'm saying that in its category as a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, not a surface-to-air missile. Because obviously, if we're talking about the best surface-to-air missile systems, it's going to be the Patriot. No doubt about it. The Patriot, as a system, will beat the Gepard each and every day. But as a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, or an SPAAG, the Gepard is by far the best one we have seen. Also, another cool thing, and let me make sure that I'm getting this correct, and I don't know if the Ukrainians have this variant, but there is such a thing as the Gepard 1A2. And I'm trying to look around for it really quickly because this was a later modification to the Gepard that the Germans did use, and here we have it. And this one is really cool. So it looks like a normal Gepard, right? You know, it's your normal thing. It's got the dual Oerlikon guns, all that stuff. Pretty normal. But what's special about a Gepard 1A2 that you're seeing in this picture right here is that it also has 4 FIM-92 Stingers attached to each Oerlikon. Meaning that not only is the thing a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, it is also, in a very small sense, a surface-to-air missile system as well. Stingers are man-pads. We've seen these a lot in the war. The Ukrainians have been giving loads of them by the United States, and they have proven to be quite effective, especially at ranges of around 3 to 5 miles at a usual distance. These things can reach out and destroy drones at about 3 to 5 miles distance, which is a couple of miles further than the guns can actually reach. We don't know if the Ukrainians ever got this version of the Gepard with the Stinger missiles. I about called them Avenger missiles. We don't know if they've gotten those because we've never seen a Gepard fire off a Stinger, but if they do get these, it's going to be adding just a little bit extra abilities to those Gepards, which are already incredibly devastating at closer ranges. Moving on from that, and that great video that we got from Odessa watching another Gepard save the lives of countless Ukrainians inside of the city, we're now going to be moving on into the war itself, and specifically our location unknowns. There wasn't really a lot of international news to cover today, at least that we found of worth. We only are able to cover about 27 separate bits of news each and every night. Over the war, we've actually figured out that if we cover any more than that, the news segment can become incredibly long and incredibly encumbered. And we want to, while cover everything that we can, we also want to make sure that we're not going on for like 5 hours straight, because you know, a lot of you all have limited amounts of time, then you can't be here all night long, so we want to make sure to try and fit in all of the important bits in a smaller amount of time, about an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes. So we didn't have any major international news today, but we did have some really cool location unknown clips. And then starting off with the first one, we got to see a little bit of thanks being given to the foreign fighters that had been fighting inside of Ukraine for practically the first day of the war and since then.
Це є що? Так, оце наші, так? 240. Це ваші, а це я зараз розкажу. Оце наші. Так. Ті, хто на позиції.
Look at that. We're witnessing a flag signing. Wonderful.
Yeah, look at that.
Just like they did with our flag.
Yeah, it's just like it.
Так. А я це
And these are foreign volunteers from various countries around South America. And we can also see a guy waving an American flag back there, but at the same time, it also looks like he had the flag of Ecuador. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But it's great to see that the foreign fighters are taking a moment to get a little bit of recognition. And of course, fighters from all around the world in Ukraine have been traveling over there throughout the entire war and have been fighting, getting wounded, and of course, eventually, some of them have ended up dying inside of Ukraine. But it's absolutely wonderful to know that people around the world, much like y'all in the Lee Spring Army, have such massive and kind hearts, and also such a drive to defend innocent people, like the folks in Ukraine, that they would risk their own lives for people that some of them most likely have never even met, just for the pure moral instinct. And I got to say, that's absolutely impressive on their end, and wonderful to know that they're taking a moment to sign a flag, so that way they'll be remembered as long as this flag's threads stay intact. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip. And also, someone said, was that a flag of Venezuela back there? I don't really know. It looked a lot like the flag of Colombia to me. But let's go see again. So let me go check real quick. The flag of Colombia, because I want to make sure that we're getting that right. Colombia.
That's a mad scope, by the way. That looks thermal or something on top of that gun.
Also, yeah, that dude, oh my god, I didn't even know what he said. Dude, that is literally like a Coca-Cola aluminum can that has been turned into a scope. That thing is huge.
Yeah. That thing probably adds a crazy amount of weight to the gun.
Dude, that guy can see the nose hairs in someone's nose at like 400 yards in that thing.
That's not hard to see with the Russians.
And also, really quickly, everyone, to clarify what I just checked, that is not the flag of Venezuela back there. That's actually, from what I could tell, the flag of Colombia. So very neat to know that the Colombians are over there. And also, to give you all a little bit of a quick background of the Colombian foreign fighters, a lot of the Colombian army, believe it or not, a lot of people always dog on South American armies and say that they're poorly experienced, have no training, so on and so forth. Most of them are conscripts. And for some South American militaries, that is completely true. But the Colombian military, if any nation in South America is an exception to that rule, it is the Colombians. The Colombian army usually gets dropped off pretty much in search and destroy missions in the middle of the Colombian jungle to destroy cartel outposts that produce cocaine and other kinds of drugs that are then transported into Central America and then on into the United States. If you ever watch a documentary of these guys, they are nothing to mess around with, especially whenever you watch them in the search and destroy missions inside of Colombia. They're hardcore, and they're there until the job is done. Sometimes half of their teams can get wiped out in these search and destroy missions, yet they still do not request evacuation until it is complete. It is a truly amazing group of army soldiers coming from Colombia, and amazing to see that they're also being represented in Ukraine and probably bringing that same fighting spirit from the jungles of Colombia to the plains and fields of Ukraine. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that neat little clip and on into the next one, where we also got to see a new kind of ghillie suit. All of y'all know about the usual ghillie suit where you're dressed up like some kind of a giant pot plant. The guy in Minnesota is about to be drooling here in a minute hearing that. But of course,
no!
Oh man. Oh, by the way, that guy's sending his people over again. Ask him to release his 1099. We'd love to know. But anyways, moving on from that, ghillie suits have been known a great deal throughout all of history, really, for the last 30 or 40 years or so. But of course, ghillie suits are constantly evolving, much like every bit of military technology inside of every military in the world. And one place that we're starting to see is becoming a major issue for soldiers to fight in and stay largely concealed in, or be seen less is urban areas. Ghillie suits don't really pose any kind of advantage in an urban area. In fact, they're a detriment. But we did see today that the Ukrainians are creating an urban ghillie suit to try and make the average soldier blend in that environment so that way snipers can operate there. Of course, y'all already know this is the suit. It's not a pile of trash, but take a look at how well it blends in with the surrounding area.
Идем мимо, лежит кучка какого-то говна. Предположительно, адамовский солдат. Давай местный вылазь потихоньку. Он раз и встает.
And now you see the soldier.
Oh my
under
god!
there. And that's really impressive.
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't able to listen for just a second. I thought we were looking at a pile of trash.
No, that's a man in a ghillie suit. It's an urban ghillie suit. Now, I think, and some people, you know, there are some nerds and snobs out there, and I have to call them that because I don't know why people are always so conceited. They'll sit there and say, "Oh, this has no use." Well, this will have a use. I promise you that. Because imagine the marksmen and the snipers that were fighting in Bakhmut for nearly 9 months in an urban hellscape, and imagine what kind of benefits this would have given them in being able to conceal their positions. It is a massive advantage, and while you can't use the urban ghillie suit in forested areas, much like you can't use a normal ghillie suit in an urban area, this thing certainly has its place on the battlefield, and is amazing as far as the abilities of concealment that it's going to be giving to the marksmen and snipers that may end up using it. Will this be
Hey man, you know with the Russians being halfway drunk constantly, you couldn't even see this if you were sober, like as a Russian. Like you'd walk right up on this unless you like touched it or tripped on it or something. You would have no clue.
Oh, dude, and imagine how crazy that would be to a drunk Russian to watch this thing start moving. He'd be going, "Vadim, the trash, it's coming alive!" And they'd be like, "Oh, you're lying!" And then they would look out there and they would see this thing get up and scoot across the floor, and they'd go, "You know, dude," they would be looking at that MRE pack that they were about to just throw into the street and go, "It's alive! It's alive, bled." But this is a stroke of pure genius right here.
Как вам затея?
I mean, and also...
Man, those Russians would literally just sit there and stare at it if they were drunk. Oh, bliat, I saw the brakes move, bliat.
Also, Matty, this just hit me. This would be great for trench warfare near Russian positions, like even in forested areas, because there's so much trash around a Russian bunker that if a Russian tried to peek his head out and someone was just kind of crouched with this on, it would be really hard in those few seconds that he has before he would, you know, go and take a nap to see the Ukrainian versus the trash.
That's true. I wonder how hard it is to make this, though, because it looks like it's probably very time-consuming.
Probably very time-consuming, but when given to the right soldiers, I bet you this makes a massive difference in survivability, concealment, and everything else regarding the mostly the safety of the soldier, because if you can't really see them, there's really no way to shoot them because you don't even know where they are. The Russians would probably just start blanketing entire grids with artillery, though. Really, in like all honesty, they would probably go, "Oh, man, someone just got shot from where? I don't know." Yes, I'd like to call in all of the artillery in the surrounding area to bombard the Greek coordinates, Bled. And they just call it as much artillery as they possibly could if they had ammo for it, but still, an amazing innovation by the Ukrainians. Moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see a couple of Ukrainian BMPs on a back road, once again, whipping. Also, we're going to have to mute that, because if y'all don't know, we are getting into huge trouble lately with copyrights. And I know a lot of people always get tired of hearing about copyrights on this channel, but so far, 2 of our videos over the past 3 days have ended up having a copyright holder claim copyright over one of the songs that plays in these clips, even if it's just for 3 seconds, and they're now running ads on our videos. On our streams. And the whole premise of the streams is that they're ad-free and sponsor-free. So we are, of course, having to mute everything and be extremely religious about it, because now it seems that the copyright holders, or at least the copyright AdSense placements, are starting to become a lot more common, at least over the past few days. And that has to do a lot with European law. A new law in the EU was passed about copyright and all that, and YouTube's freaking out. So that's probably why, but now we have to mute everything religiously. But we can see this Ukrainian BMP-2 here with some digital camo, and I gotta say, looks really good. And we can also see a BMP-3 that the Ukrainians were able to capture and use as well. We see the driver climbing out. And I gotta be honest, I don't know if this is gonna be a hot take with some of y'all, but in my opinion, I think the BMP-2 looks better than the BMP-3.
Is that the 3 right here?
Let's see. This is the BMP-2 right up here at the beginning of the video, and the BMP-3 is the one that pulls up behind it.
Yeah, I don't know about the green camo. That doesn't seem like it's a good thing for actual warfare.
What, the digital camo?
Yeah, that green, like that lime green color.
No, dude, that would be fine, man. Imagine, like, think about it. Look at the shading in between the trees. This is just supposed to break the form of the tank and make it a little bit harder to really identify where the tank is. I think it would do a great job because a lot of those leaves in the background are about as bright lime colored as those little pixels are on the tank.
Yeah, maybe so, maybe so.
I mean,
but I like the front one better than the back one, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I do too. I think the BMP-3 was a step backwards in terms of aesthetic, but in terms of firepower, it is better. But at the same time, though, I'm about to show y'all something else about the BMP-3 that I don't like, and it's something that really just bothers me every time I see them in action. So let me go grab that really quickly because y'all have already seen that video. Let me go grab the BMP-3 with infantry. And let me see if I can get y'all a picture of infantry riding in the back of a BMP-3, because you'll have never even seen anything like this before. Well, I'm pretty sure y'all wouldn't have, because it's very hard to even find freaking pictures of this. Oh, here we go. So usually a BMP, like a BMP-2, let me go grab one of those to show you a picture of the infantry getting out of a BMP-2. Right here, this is a pretty good picture from the Soviet Union. But anyways, most armored personnel carriers have an enclosed cab that the infantry sit inside of at the back of the APC. That's conventional. That's what every APC does. Every infantry fighting vehicle also does as well. The crew compartment usually is contained and has a roof over it, because that just makes sense. It protects the infantry from being hit by small arms fire and a whole bunch of other nasty stuff like artillery shrapnel as they're moving up to the front line that otherwise would hit them and knock them out if they were just sitting on top of the APC or the IFV. That's not the case with the BMP-3. The BMP-3 has got to be one of the stupidest APC designs I've ever seen, because instead of actually sitting inside of the tank, you kind of like sit on these benches like you're in the back tail hitch of a pickup truck, and the upper half part of your torso and head just sticks out of the back of the APC while it's riding around.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like how there's a tag on the back of it too. Do you see that?
Yeah, but you know, that's not really that cool, because you're going to get killed by shrapnel, gunfire, and everything before you even get out of the APC, because there's no way to completely hide yourself in this thing. There's nothing stopping a bullet from just getting you, you know, and it's a goofy design. Let me see if I can actually, here we go. So I think this actually is a BMP-3 in Ukraine. And look, you just get up there, you sit down on the bench, and then the upper half of your torso is just completely exposed. I wish I could get you all a real picture of people sitting down in this thing, because it's killing me that I can't, because when you really see it, oh, here we go. So there they are. They're actually kind of like sitting down, kind of crouching in the back of the BMP-3. Look how much of their body sticks up over the top of the APC.
Dang it, then they're like standing in the bottom of it?
No, I mean, like, these guys are like kind of like crouched or kneeled back there at the back of the BMP-3, and look still how high up off the BMP-3 they are. And some people are saying there's back doors. Yeah, there's back doors, like on like a tailgate on a pickup truck. Like, it's just a stupid design all around. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And let me go back to that picture and find it with the back doors open. Oh man, here we go. So you close these doors like tailgates. You never get inside of the APC. You just kind of sit on top of it in these little culverts in the back of the APC. It's just a stupid design. It's idiotic. Like, that's the best way I can put it. And here you go. Here's a better look at it. There's no way in hell that you're going to be able to sit down and be completely safe from any kind of incoming fire, because that right there, that white flat bottom area, that is the floor. There's no way to make that any deeper. So
I think you might be better off just getting a pickup truck, mounting a 50 cal to the back, and riding in the pickup bed.
Yeah, or do what some certain groups in the Middle East do, which is just get a pickup truck and take the turret and mount it to the flatbed or something.
Yeah,
I mean, that'll do the same.
That'd be a lot more quick and nimble than this slow thing.
Yeah, and also it just doesn't really do anything for infantry protection at all. So it's like, what's the point? That's the whole point of the IFV, is to give a little bit of firepower to the infantry, scoot them up to the line, drop them off, maybe a little additional fire support after that, and then leave. this is completely defeating that point. The infantry aren't safe moving up to the front. But anyways, enough of that rabbit hole. I just don't like the BMP-3. I think it's a goofy design. But moving on from that and into the next one, we also got some pictures of the Alpha team of the Ukrainian Special Forces, which is just sick. Look at that M4.
That is nice.
Man, that is kitted to the nines. We can also see another picture here of a guy who has some kind of a bolt-action rifle. Can't really tell what kind it is exactly. I'm not really
I think it's a Barrett MRAD.
Oh, really? Look at you, damn son. You know, someone's about to come and say, wrong. That's actually a Hyper Schnucks 350 or something like that. You know, they're going to know
Hyper
the
Schnucks.
the Hyper Schnucks, man. But we can also see the guy with the M4 again. And I got to say, that scope is just killing it, too. It's a very nice looking scope. And then in the last
That's
picture.
an EOTech Voodoo, I think.
Oh man, you know, I don't even say what they are anymore because you know someone's about to come in with some obscure brand and say you're wrong, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna let people guess what it is. But then in the last picture, we can also see another guy with what appears to be another M4 with a suppressor mounted, and we can't really tell exactly what kind of scope that is. But of course, just a few pictures of the Alpha unit in training. Still, their equipment is very high-end, and also, it's great to know that Ukrainian units are pulled off the line occasionally to continue training and refining their skills, that way when they go back up to the line, they are even more lethal than they were the last time they were there. Moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next bit, we also got to see the first time ever that a combat ATGM that was produced by Ukraine was fired from a tank. Here's the clip. I can't play the music, but we're about to see the shell loaded, and there is the missile, the combat ATGM. And we can see the gunner there. He's like, did it load? He's like trying to look around the breach. He's like, hopefully that loaded. But anyways, the combat ATGM, nothing really is known about it all too much. It's an indigenous Ukrainian design, and some of y'all may be like, wait a minute, tanks can fire ATGMs? Why, yes, they can. And that's actually something quite normal in Soviet-era tanks, is that most of them were designed to fire mostly purpose-made ATGMs for the tanks. They would carry a few of them, and in practice, they would give the Soviet tanks additional range over Western vehicles because the missiles could be guided for much farther than an actual APFSDS shell could fly accurately. Although you could still push it and probably get an get an APFSDS about as far as an ATGM can go. But nevertheless, we don't really know much about this thing. We don't know how much armor it can go through. We don't know how far its range is. But it is a new Ukrainian design, so we're expecting that it'll probably be better than the old Soviet designs in small ways in every single category. But beyond that, it's just very neat to see that the Ukrainians are innovating and introducing new technology of their own into the front lines to hopefully help them out.
You know how that fellow's looking at the autoloader and everything. He's looking at it like, oh, bliat, is this going to take my job? Where's my job security, bliat? It's taking it. It's doing my work.
Dude, this Ukrainian that was looking down that breach, much like a Russian soldier looks at his contract after he figures out he's not actually getting paid anymore. He's looking at it like that. And he's like, no money? Oh, man. There's so many jokes that could be made on that. But we're going to hold back. But still, great to see them, of course, using a new weapon system on the front. And speaking of new weapon systems and new ways to try and fight the Russian army, according to the information we're getting today, the Ukrainians are already fighting the Russian army incredibly well. 7 Bobcat skid steers.
Oh, 7 Bobcats. Let's go. I hadn't had a number like that in days.
We haven't had... Oh. What the hell? Are you good? Dude, that sounded like you stubbed your toe. That didn't sound like a thing of joy.
Jim Carrey laughing, you know, the rich people laughing.
Oh, man. I'm not even going to do that again because I think I blew out a lot of people's eardrums. And I'm going to try, everyone, to make a conscious effort not to blow out y'all's eardrums over the whole stream. I know that I do that a good bit. It's on accident. I hoped that the microphone had some kind of like an equalizer in it where it would stop the noise from just blowing people's eardrums out, but apparently it doesn't. So I'm going to try and make a concerted effort to not have y'all's eardrums bleeding by the end of the night. If you appreciate that, put an LSA in the chat. But anyways, 7 Bobcat skid steers destroyed. Of course, absolutely wonderful to see, and a very big loss. That means that the Russians are losing a decent amount of special equipment vehicles, which could suggest that the Ukrainians are moving forward in some area around Rapotne and have run into areas of the line where the Russians were still trying to create ad hoc defensive positions and then destroyed the special equipment vehicles while they were there. but still impressive losses. We also got to see that 610 Russian soldiers have been liquidated over the past 24 hours, along with a also equally impressive number of 21 armored personnel carriers. 27 supply trucks were also destroyed over the past 24 hours, along with 9 entire main battle tanks. That's enough to supply almost an entire battalion tactical group. 37 artillery pieces, 22 drones, 5 MLRSs, 8 cruise missiles were intercepted, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, which was that $200 million radar system on the beach, was also destroyed. Today was an incredibly good day for the Ukrainian army as far as they were able to inflict losses onto Russian forces, and hopefully they will be able to ramp up these losses as the offensive continues. Of course, we're going to be getting into the news that we've gotten today from the front lines, and while every day has usually been filled with excitement and a lot of action as far as the Ukrainian army goes, it does appear that today the Ukrainians are kind of taking a little bit of a step back. We're not seeing as much infantry activity as we've been seeing over the past few days, and it appears that the Ukrainians may be trying to reconsolidate their forces and reorganize them once again, or largely compose them, so that way the offensive can continue on. This is somewhat normal in longer and lengthened offensive actions because over time the cohesiveness of the units does eventually wear down, and so then you usually have to declare a day or two break to make sure that units are once again more cohesive than they were and that they don't continue to deteriorate. But moving on from the location unknowns and getting towards that frontline news, there is a lot to cover. It was a fairly even spread across the entirety of the front line today. We saw a little bit of action from everywhere, and while the Ukrainians are taking a little bit of a frontline pause today, it does not mean that the Ukrainians have not been inflicting large losses on the Russian forces. Of course, the casualty report is showing they're still going pretty strong, and not only that, a lot of these videos also show loads of turret tosses. The turret tosses made a return today. We had like 3 of them. But before we get into all of those, we have to address a lot of what y'all have been saying in the chat. Of course, we've been hearing all kinds of great and exciting things tonight. Apparently, our friend in Minnesota is going mental. We're also hearing a lot of y'all's opinions on what is going on inside of the war in Ukraine as well. And a lot of y'all have also voted on the top questions on what y'all have been thinking, and I would like to see what y'all are thinking about some of the top news of the day. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our first poll and question segment, our first poll says, reports allege that Elon Musk, quote-unquote, turned off Ukraine's Starlink connection during an attack on the Black Sea Fleet, and what are your thoughts? 69%, nice, said if true, that is despicable. 19% said I need verification of this first, 6% said unsure, and 6% said if true, that is his prerogative. And I want to say first off that I do not know for a fact if that is true. I'm simply repeating what news articles have been saying, and it is an allegation. So I'm not insinuating that he actually did that because I don't know for a fact. But if the reports that allege that are true, I would say that is definitely despicable. But putting myself in his shoes for just a second, with him being in charge of Starlink, he says the reason why he might have turned that off, if he actually did or not, is that he feared he might be supporting a mini Pearl Harbor. He thought that the attack on the Black Sea Fleet back in the day might have started a World War scenario. So that was what he thought at the time. And, you know, that's up to interpretation of whether or not that's true or not, or would have been accurate. But, you know, given him the benefit of the doubt, I can kind of see both sides. But at the same time, if Ukraine is paying for Starlink, what right does he have to simply just turn it off at will? But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that if he's saying that he was trying to stop a mini Pearl Harbor, that is, you know, and I don't mean to be critical or anything, but that is about the dumbest take I've ever heard on a attack on the Black Sea Fleet, because Pearl Harbor was a surprise attack on the U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii that then kicked us off into a war. We weren't already at war with Japan when that happened. It was a surprise attack, and that's what sent us into a war. So I don't really know how he's saying, oh yeah, 2 countries at war with each other for nearly a year at that point, and then one of them attacks the other's navy at port. That might be a Pearl Harbor situation. I don't really even get the idea of how there would even be a historical comparison in between the two, because that just doesn't make any sense. Another thing that doesn't make any sense to me at all is, like Matthew said, if someone's paying for a service from your company, how the hell do you get the right to just shut off the service that someone is paying for? You know, it's like paying the power company your electrical bill, and then they just shut off your power even when you're paying the electrical bill because they said, oh, well, you know, you might be using the electricity to cook meth in your house. So, like, what type of stupid assumption is that? Like, they don't even have anything to go off of right there. And also, if the attack didn't create a Pearl Harbor situation, what the hell is he concerned about? That was months ago. The last
And
time.
also to make matters worse, the article also says that when it was actually shut off, allegedly, Ukraine's digital minister Mykolaiv, or I'm not sure how to say his first name, Fedorov, was apparently texting with Musk, asking him to turn it back on so they can actually carry out the attack. Because if they didn't carry out the attack, Russia would launch their missiles and attack Ukrainian cities and potentially kill civilians. So apparently this came out when Musk was being interviewed or something like that for some kind of biography, or someone said it. Not really sure who. I don't know. Have all the exact details, but definitely sketchy to say the least.
Yeah, you know, that's a really sketchy thing. And also I saw someone say the war was on already. Not for America. That's the difference. World War II may have been going on for about 2 years at that point around the world, but it wasn't going on for America. That's what brought us in. So saying that the Ukrainians attacking the Russians is like Pearl Harbor makes no sense because those two countries are already at war with each other. So this would more so be like the British raid on Mers el Kabir in northern Africa in 1940 than anything related to Pearl Harbor. This is more so just a continuation of an already ongoing war. But beyond that, I would actually have to, and usually I try and withhold judgment and try and say things fairly, but I would have to denounce that move by Elon Musk. That is a ridiculous move, especially when a country is paying for the services, and also, at the same time, no Pearl Harbor incident came out of the attack. So it doesn't even make sense to act like we need to react like it did. So I'm not even getting where he's coming from. I mean, I don't even know how to add on to that beyond that point. It just makes no sense, that statement. And I see a lot of people saying he's evil and stuff like that. And I'll say this. People usually, and this is something that's always crazy to me, especially when you think about it, is that people can make dumb decisions, and I would say that that's a fairly dumb decision, and they actually have good intentions. But I don't think that at all removes the fact that it is a dumb decision, regardless whether he thinks it's a good call on his end or not. That makes no sense. The Ukrainians have been relying on Starlink to help their militaries to operate in the field, and not only that, to defend the citizens of Ukraine from merciless Russian attacks. Without that infrastructure, they may not be able to protect all the Ukrainian citizenry that they have been able to right now. So I don't even, at that point, it doesn't even look like it's a good moral decision. It just looks like a reckless decision that is in line with many others at this point, to be quite honest, because, you know, not saying a lot about the guy, you know, of course, I have to preface this with this statement that he is a bit of a political figure apparently nowadays, and we're not talking about him on that end, but as far as Twitter has been going, it has been taking, from what we've observed just operating our Twitter account, a bit of a downward trend a little bit. As of late. You know, I can't even really deny that anymore. It's getting tougher and tougher to run a Twitter account over there. And not only that, why the hell does everyone have to be notified when Elon Musk puts out a meme? Really, honestly, I could care less. Great, he owns Twitter, but why do I have to know about it? But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says, Ukraine is now restricting some women from leaving the country, and they've ordered military registration. And what are your thoughts? 62% said that's fine, they can serve too. 17% said I need more information. 13% said, that suggests bad things. And 7% said unsure. And I have to recognize up front that the fact that they are starting to basically have some women sign up for military registration, that does suggest that there might be an issue getting people in the military. I have to recognize that up front, which could be a bad thing. But at the same time, the women can serve a role rather than combat. If that's not what they want to do, is go into combat. It sounds like they're trying to get women with pharmaceutical degrees or something like that to join the military, so that way they can use their services there. So it's an interesting issue, and Enforcer, what say you on it?
It's an interesting move, though, because while they're making it sound benign right now, having women begin the registration process for conscription is a bit of a slippery slope that could lead to them trying to recruit women into frontline fighting positions. And some folks are going to say, oh, they wouldn't do that. But throughout all of Soviet history, that's exactly what they did when things got bad. They would start conscripting the women. And that's something that was famously known about in the Second World War, because a lot of Soviet female snipers ended up becoming very popular. And also, back in the day, it was also seen as a sign of it's a very weird thing, and I'm going to try and explain it the best I can. It has no modern context to it at all. This is how it was viewed at the time. It was viewed by a lot of people around the world when women started serving in the Soviet army as some kind of a massive social step forward, like women were being put on an equal footing with men in the military. But the only reason that women started to be in the Soviet army was because the Soviet Union was running out of available manpower, and it was such a bad situation. They then said everyone's being conscripted, and and then that also started to create really weird things as well, like 13-year-old kids showing up on the front lines, and the Soviets were trying to paint them as heroes, although they were conscripting child soldiers, which did happen a couple of times. And I know someone's about to talk about Pasha, the 8-year-old kid who was like an orphan and everything. That's a whole other story. There were actually like 13 and 15-year-old boys on the Russian front line in the Red Army in some instances that were awarded medals of like heroes of the Soviet Union at certain times that had been conscripted, that, quote unquote, lied about their age. But obviously, no commissar is going to look at a 13-year-old boy and go, yeah, he's passable as an 18-year-old. No one's doing that. That kid was conscripted forcefully by a commissar and thrown into the army, and then they made the story sound all nice and frou-frou. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, because I think that is showing that the Russians are trying to slowly ease their way into having women in frontline positions, because the manpower situation is at a crucial point already, and everything that we're seeing right now is certainly indicating that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, that was the Ukrainians doing that, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yes, the Ukrainians.
Man, I just went on a whole rant about something. Oh, well, anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, real quick, I'm going to withhold my opinion on it, but in general, this is a question for the chat without running a poll on it. Is it considered preferable these days to basically conscript women into the military to serve in combat roles? Because I'm not really sure if that is a preferable thing or not. Obviously, women can be in combat roles if they choose to be, but I don't know if that's considered preferable or not in the modern day.
And so hopefully y'all answer that. Man.
Of course, definitely not going to touch that one.
No, I'm not touching that at all. Y'all can answer that if y'all want, but I'm not going to give an opinion on it. I'll just let y'all make y'all's decisions down there. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll for now, so we are moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a $30 donation from Santiago Flores, channel legend, and thank you very much, Santiago, for that support. And he says, the prolonging this war and not giving Ukraine the tools to finish the job, maybe some countries want Ukraine to destroy or degrade Russian military, but on the negative side, the war can spill over to other countries and danger.
And thank you so much for the support, Santiago Flores. And also, I hope you've been having a nice time watching tonight while the chat goes wild with the answers to that question. It's all across the board, really. But anyways, moving on from that, I would agree that prolonging the war is something that should not be the aim of the Western world. Wars have to be ended fast. That's the whole thing of a war. And a lot of people always like to go, the book, 1984, never-ending wars. No. That's not how real life works. Wars are like the worst thing ever, unless if it's some kind of a minor war like Iraq or Afghanistan, where you can put a couple of trillion in there over about a decade or two. That's one thing, because it's not incredibly expensive or strenuous. But a conventional war, and a massive one like the war in Ukraine, where it's nonstop, all-out fighting for years, that is devastating economically to Ukraine as much as it is to Russia. The Ukrainians are faring it a lot better because the West is giving them billions of dollars in support constantly, which has been a massive boost for them and also has helped them to even start reconstruction now, even before the war has ended. But I would certainly agree with you, Santiago. Getting the equipment over there into Ukraine for the war to end is the priority. The war needs to end as soon as possible because there is a lot of things going on in the world, and we can't have the entire east area of Eastern Europe hung up on the war in Ukraine ending in years. We need this to end in at least the next year, in my opinion. So we need to get the F-16s over there. We need to continue to provide as much ammunition, honestly, more than the Ukrainians are even asking for artillery, surface-to-air missiles, infantry equipment, and so on, so that way they will have so much of a surplus that they can end up having a decent amount of strategic flexibility on where they use that surplus and what kind of actions they'll be taking. The more, the better for Ukraine. And so I would certainly agree, we don't need to be holding back on support and prolonging the war. We need to get everything over there as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, because the more we do up front, the less we have to do in the long term. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Santiago, and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help me to stay over-caffeinated every single day. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Troy Wilson, another channel legend who puts in a $20 donation as well. Thank you very much, Troy, for your support. Also, he says, I remember the clip of Russian recruits being told to use a women's product to plug their wounds, but I think now they need tactical women's products.
And I thank you so much for the support, Troy. And I gotta say, I would have to agree. Matthew was trying to cleanse the comment there, and I think I'll also have to cleanse it as well. But I think they will need tactical women's products for their tactical diapers, because the Russians have gotten so scared so quickly these days that they're also wearing tactical diapers as well. And so, with that, thank you so much once again for support, Troy Wilson. And I love that you threw in the tactical in that. And I gotta say, Troy, you are throwing in the tactical super chat, which is helping this channel to call in airstrikes to keep this channel running. That was not an airstrike. That was like the sound of like a whip or something like that I just did. That was not an airstrike. I need... There we go. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Troy, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the Frontline news.
All right, and the last one of this segment goes to That Mom, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much as well for the support. I said, accent, call your mother, or whatever maternal figure you have in your lives, like your aunt or your guardian, and no judgment here, and just check in with your people, and you never know how long you got them.
And I gotta thank you for the support, That Mom, and I've gotta agree, absolutely. Always make sure to try and keep in touch with your family and keep on good terms with them if you can. Of course, there are situations out there where that's just not possible because of one thing or another. But if you ever have the chance and you actually love your family and it's a good family, make sure not to let things get in the way, like work or anything else for that matter. Always make sure to keep in touch with them and always keep up a good rapport, because one day those people will be missing and you won't be able to talk to them ever again. That's something that we've actually dealt with a lot through our lives, is that a decent amount of family members over the past few years have ended up dying, and sometimes we didn't really get to talk to them much at all, because either they were incredibly far away or it was other stuff going on. But always make sure to keep in touch with them, because whenever they're gone, you regret it a great deal that you never really get to talk to them. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, That Mom. That was heavy. I gotta say, that was a really heavy one right there. But thank you so much once again for supporting the Pizza Fund and helping this channel to keep on running, and also supporting the Family Call Fund, which is a first in channel history. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, it's now time for us to move on into the Frontline news, starting off in the northeastern area around Kislivka, where we saw that the 108th Brigade of the Ukrainian Army was able to capture a Russian drone. Oh. Yeah, we're just going to keep that muted. But we can see the intro card rolling, and now we can see the Ukrainians with their little Russian Mavic. Look at that right there. Beautiful. And a cat. Hey! And we can see him talking about it a little bit. Oh, look, no music. Look, it's got pictures of its operator. Hey, look at that. Hey. It's Walter White. He's cooking. Man, that Russian said, I am the one who neck split. Wait, there was another one? Hold up, that flipped over so quickly. Oh, look, now he's taking a long-range shot of himself with a drone. Love it.
Why would he do that? That's stupid.
Dude, that's like a criminal stealing someone's phone and then taking their pictures on it and uploading it to Facebook. It's like, good job, idiot. It's like, that's not smart. We see him continuing to talk about the drone. Good God, okay. We got the jivey flute up in here, man. We gonna be getting the medieval people down tonight. But anyways, with that, that's the end of the clip, and great to see that they were able to get a Russian drone and even get some pictures of its former operator. I wonder if they'll be able to find where that guy was. But moving on from that and into our next little clip, we also got to see a couple of Russians in this area being hit by some good artillery. It appeared to have been a squad-sized unit moving through the town, and an artillery shell landed at the rear end of the squad, knocking down a good bit of them. We can see the rest of the squad is not stopping for the others that are back there, and now the whole squad is dispersing everywhere and trying to find places to hide. About 6 of them are all going into this house to the right, which is clearly a mistake with the drone watching them. The artillery will be called into that area soon. And now we can see them trying to walk their way back out onto the road, hoping the drone is gone, but alas, it was not, and another round hit the area. We now see them, of course, leaving the other guy behind. You know, good luck, pal. And it appears that he's doing some aerobics. Now you see the Russians trying to hide from the artillery shelling, but the shell landed right on top of them, and that appears that it's not going to do well. And I can also see that Matthew took a quick moment to give some kind words, or some less than kind words, to a troll. And, you know, I'm going to take the quick moment here because we've always got to deal with a heckler. You know, heckler's got to be dealt with eventually. And I was thinking, Matthew, what better time to put one down than right now? The guy said, dude, believe me, you don't need pizza. I'm still getting over the sweat stain sitting still from the last time you streamed that. And I'm telling you, I'm still getting over the stain your mother left on the mattress when the piece of shit that you were was born. It was brown and nasty, and you're still sitting in it.
Damn,
but anyways,
son, damn.
Moving on from that, a very effective artillery strike and hopefully an effective roast on that dumbass. And moving on from that, we're now going to be moving on down into the area of Kremenna, where we did get to see that a Dishka, being used as largely a squad machine gun, was being used in Kremenna. And the Dugga-Duggas were pretty loud. Check it out. Dude, the rate of fire on this thing is so slow, it sounds like a jackhammer, man. You now see them reloading the Dishka as the firefight's now heating up.
Yeah!
And listen to that roar. That's the end of that little clip. I got a huge admiration for the Ukrainians and their just unstoppable need for more firepower. I don't know how they made Dishkas portable on the battlefield, but this isn't even the end of it. They have 30mm autocannons out there that would be mounted onto a BMP-2 that they also use as frontline machine guns. It's really impressive and amazing stuff, and I gotta say, I'm always blown away to see them using Dishkas in other kinds of guns like that. But that's the only clip we got from the area of the Kremenna Forest today, and now it's time for us to move on down into the area of Bakhmut. Over the past 24 hours, we really haven't seen a lot of frontline movement in this area. For that matter, it appears that Deep State UA is just updating the map and finally showing the Ukrainians on the railroad berm, which has been something we've known about for quite a while at this point. But moving on from that and into the clips that we've gotten from this area, in the farthest northern flank near Berestove, we did get to see the Baba Yaga drones in action again, dropping off the 10-kilogram TM62 anti-tank mines. We can see the drone flying in right there. And holy moly, thank you so much, YB Watching, for the support.
Hey, let's go, YB.
And we'll, of course, be addressing that in a little bit. We'll be giving a good moment to that and a thanks to it, but thank you so much right now. And we can see them dropping the anti-tank mine onto the Russian position. And we now see the Baba Yaga drone. It's not really a Baba Yaga like the other ones with the 8 motors. There's only one with 4, but it is still dropping the TM62, so it counts. And man, that thing's even getting a temperature reading down there. 17 degrees.
17.0 C.
Celsius. Celsius, man. It's Celsius.
I know.
You know what the Russians are about to do, Matthew? They're about to see it, though. They're about to see it.
See?
See? Dude, the Russians are going, hey, look, they just dropped the dinner plate. There's no dinner plate. Oh my god. Dude, those anti-tank mines have about the same blast radius as a 155mm shell, it seems. Now we see Baba Yaga on the way back out. Absolute champ of a drone, though. We now see them dropping another one. It's on its way. It's on its way, and man, they got another one. And with that, that's the
Lion skull.
Man.
How about that?
Oh, look, another one. What's this one going to do?
Oh, an extra.
Oh!
For the blooper reel.
Was that a tank? Hang on. That looks a lot like a tank to me. I think that thing just blew up right along the length of the tank. Doesn't look like it hit directly onto it, but a solid hit still. And also giving y'all a scale of how big the anti-tank mines explosion is compared to the size of a normal Russian main battle tank. But that's the end of the clip, and wonderful to see that those Baba Yaga anti-tank mine drones are being thrown onto the front lines more than Russian conscripts at this point by the Ukrainians. I mean, these things are being used in massive amounts. But moving on from that into the next bit of news near Krasnopolivka, we also got to see the Ukrainian army hitting a Russian trench. So really quickly, let me get all of this set up here. Let me make sure to mute that. And so we can now see the drone looking down onto the Russian position and the first bomblet already going off. We can now see a couple of more bits of ammo cooking up. Almost like the next roast I'm giving to a heckler. The first heckler that pops up, they're getting shot down. That's how it's going tonight.
Man, those poor hecklers, they don't stand a chance here.
Man. You know, and people always think from our cheesy dad jokes and things that we don't really know how to respond with roasts, but I can promise you, 9 out of 10 times I'm holding back. That's usually the kind of roast or response I have to each of them, but we always like to keep it nice and PG here.
Man, we're always holding back. Just ask blithering idiots. We can get foul.
Oh, man. And we can see them coming over another ammo depot. We can see some TM62 anti-tank mines down there. What do you know? Well, I wonder what's going to happen. It's going to be very nice, very explosive. It's probably going to wipe out this entire trench line here. And... oh, wait a minute, it didn't.
Oh.
We didn't have any kind of a massive explosion.
A wee little one.
It just went... bing! And now you see the second one. And now it looks like they're getting this one right into the middle of the pile, so we're about to probably watch a nuclear explosion. Yep, yeah.
Oh, damn.
Dude, that was so forceful. The camera went black and white for a few seconds. Look at it. Oh my lord.
Damn. It shook the drone in the air like it was on the ground.
Well, that trench work is gone in that area.
Oh, it was zoomed in. And it shook it.
That's just goodness gracious. And we can now see them just soaking in the amazing hit they just got on that anti-tank mine pit. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But impressive to see that they were able to hit a Russian position up here near the railroad tracks near Krasnopolivka and send the anti-tank mines flying. Moving on from that and into the area of Bakhmut, we can also see a Russian tank up in flames in this area. And when I say up in flames, did I mean turret toss? I did. This channel is the birthplace of the turret toss. The first time the words turret and toss were ever used in the same sentence in this war was on this channel by a viewer whose name has been forgotten with time. But I remember them saying that. It was like, well, actually, I think it was something that was kind of come up all at the same time by everyone, because we were talking about, like, the turrets are getting thrown up into the air like a hammer toss at the Olympics, and then everyone just kind of came up with turret toss at the same time, I think, and then we've just run with it since. But the turret tosses are making a return today. All right. Heard a little bit of bass and snare there. And there goes the tank, and there goes the turret.
Oh.
Man, the Russians are furious. This thing got closer to the moon than their very satellite did. But tell me, rating-wise, what do y'all think that that tank turret toss was? 1 out of 10, 10 being the best.
That really is nuts, though, that like several ton turret can just get thrown up in the air like a twig.
Oh yeah, imagine the folks inside of the tank. Oh man, I'm telling you. But anyway, so that's the end of the clip. But I gotta say, if I had to give it a rating, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It was a pretty good one. I think it could have gone a little bit higher because it didn't really go up to the very top of the explosion cloud or the explosion plume. It was kind of off to the side, but overall, great form, great altitude, great airtime, and also an impressive spin as well. A pretty solid turret toss as far as they go. So a 9 out of 10 in my books. Matthew, what do you think?
I would give it a 7.2.
Oh man, Matthew's very critical. He's like a 7. It could be better.
0.25.
Oh, 0.25 and a quarter. But with that, we're moving on from that.
A quarter. A quarter for your trouble.
Man, a quarter. Man, I've heard about quarters and I've heard about dimes. I think someone around here knows about dimes a little bit, don't they? From Minnesota. But anyways, moving on from that.
Oh!
And you know what that means. Y'all know what it means. Let that sink in. But anyways, moving on to Andriivka, we also got to see a Russian tank destroyed right across the railroad berm from Andriivka. You can actually see Andriivka in the clip a little bit at the very top of the screen. So we can see the drones first spotting the tanks. And we can see it's a tank trying to recover an MTLB, which appears to be a complete waste of time and resources, really. It's like a $100,000 APC. And we now see it getting hit. We now see the next drone coming in right there. Oh, actually, what the hell was that? It looked like a drone, but then it blew up like an airburst round. Oh! It's one of those little parachute artillery rounds that the Panzerhaubitze fires. I forgot what they're called. I think they're called smart shells. But it has a parachute that helps it to pretty much glide itself right over its target, and then it explodes as an airburst like it did right there. We rarely ever see that thing, so that just took me off guard. But it hit the MTLB. Now you see it happening again. And now you see the recovery tank smoking. The MTLB probably doesn't have a lot to burn in it, so we probably won't watch it catch on fire for a good bit. But now the tank is roaring aflame as the ammunition is going up inside of it. And we can also see that the breech on this tank is open because this thing is smoking more than one of those chain smoking folks that works in as a line cook in a restaurant. But we can see here the fire continuing to burn out of the top of the tank. And that, of course, is the end of the clip. But, love to see it. It's great to know that the Russians lost a insignificant MTLB and a much less insignificant T-72B. Moving on from that clip at Andriivka and moving a little bit further down the lines, we also got to see that that was everything that happened in Bakhmut today, from north to south, east to west. Of course, not a lot of frontline movements. The Ukrainians are controlling the railroad berm at the moment, so beyond that, we're not really seeing much in that area at the moment. But moving on down into Avdiivka, we did get to see that the Ukrainians were flushing the Russians out of a house here. And you know what's ironic is that the Ukrainians are flushing them out while the Russians are trying to steal all of the toilets they can. How ironic. But anyways, we can see them dropping the bomb straight through the top of this building. It goes right through the roof and then explodes inside. Any minute now. And now we can see the fire that's been created from the explosion that we didn't get to see on film. And now they're going to be dropping a second bomblet onto that house. We can now see the house is fairly on fire. I don't want to say it definitively, but I'm pretty sure that that house is going to burn down. So with that, that's the end of that clip. Of course, wonderful to see. Love to see it. And we're now going to be moving on from that area. Of course, no frontline movements there to speak of. And we're now going to be moving on into Donetsk, where we got to see that a Russian camera system mounted onto a crane was destroyed by a Ukrainian FPV drone today. We're going to be muting that, but we can see...
Oh, look, it's a German crane.
Man, you know, this crane at some point, man, like the Russians said, we're going communist around here, Bliat. We found in the DPR and the LPR. And then this crane went, Geschlägt I'm so sorry to all the Germans. I make that joke all the time. Don't be offended. But anyways, we can see the FPV drone lining itself up for the hit, and poof, you hit right onto the camera, taking it on out. And we can now see in the next
really
clip,
hurt it much.
Oh no, the camera's gone. Like, I'll show you. Here's the before picture right there. There's the camera. Here's the after picture. Notice the lack of camera. It was a success. And now you see the drone going around the crane, making sure to get a good look. And that's the end.
We know the Russians can't be building very much of anything, so what's that crane doing out there?
Man, that crane has been there since 2014, believe it or not, when the Donbass conflict broke out. And since then, it's just been sitting there for about 10 years, abandoned in that field. So the Russians weren't building anything, it was the Ukrainians, and then the construction got interrupted by intermittent gunfire and battles. But moving on out of that area of Donetsk, we're now going to be moving on into the southern front, where most of the action would usually be occurring, and it was occurring today, but less than it has been over the past few days. Moving on into the area of Volodymyrivka, we got to see that the Russian recovery vehicle in this area was also destroyed like the last one. Chad music ensues. We can see the recovery vehicle trying to pull this Russian tank out of the side of the road. It appears that the recovery vehicle isn't able to get enough traction, but this drone is about to make sure that it makes a lot of traction with the tank. We can now see the recovery crew running away. Apparently they know what's coming. Oh, Bliet, run away! What about the recovery? Recover my life, Bliet. Get me out of here. And so we can now see the drone flying.
It's called Sunburn.
Really?
Yeah, it says it right there at the bottom.
Oh, dang. Dude, get some sunscreen then, damn. But anyway, so you can see it running right into the recovery vehicle, taking it out in one hit.
Oh, my skin, Bliet, is so red. Oh, goodness, sunburn.
You didn't see graphite. That's it. You didn't see graphite, you idiot. But I did. This man is sick and feeble. Take him to the infirmary. So you see them hitting the recovery vehicle twice. Oh, by the way, some of y'all might be confused, and I've seen this in the live chat a little bit. Some people are mentioning the channel, who, of course, is apparently having another mental meltdown right now from what people have been saying. The Nightbot automatically deletes the comments with that name in it. So it's nothing against you for trying to defend the channel or anything, just that we don't allow that name to even be spoken here. But anyways, we can see some kind of a meme here. I don't maybe this is from like a Soviet cartoon or something, but we can see like an elephant being tortured by Father Frost, once again a violation of the Geneva Convention, and a T-72B3 has been overlaid on the elephant. With that,
the hell?
I don't even know what that's
supposed to represent.
I'm going to unmute it for just a second. Maybe there's some music to accompany it.
Oh.
Okay, well, we're not
scaring me.
Mama, Mama said mommy. I don't know what that is, but anyways, we're moving on from that. Wonderful to see they were able to get the recovery vehicle, though. And now we're going to be moving on into the area of Zolota Niva. Today we saw that some Ukrainians were maxing out the suspension of a BTR. That's the best way to put it. Y'all will see what I mean. Y'all will see. There's about 50 of them up there, and you can even see the BTR suspension is truly strained under the weight.
Uh-oh. I smell a Tony situation.
Dude, no, you know what I'm hearing, man? I'm hearing Mike Tyson's voice coming out of this BTR going, my back's broken.
That suspension is crying out for help. Help! Help!
dude, that thing said, call an ambulance, but not for me.
That thing goes over one bump, and that suspension is done.
Dude, that thing goes over one bump. Those leaf springs under the chassis are going to be exploding like little anti-tank mines because of how much pressure they're under. But anyways, pretty wild to see. I've never seen a BTR get a suspension maxed out by just infantry alone. But apparently they paid for the whole suspension. They're using the whole suspension. And also, Techie DJR said, spinal. It's spinal. My back's broken. Mike, what do you mean?
Mike, how you hurt?
Spinal.
How you hurt? Spinal.
Spinal. My back's broken. But anyways, with that,
and nobody questioned a thing. They said, "Oh, okay."
Dude, they said, "Man, I'm not getting beat by this guy today for asking a question." I'm just going, "Okay, man." But anyways, moving on from that, further down the line towards Poloki, we also got to see a HIMARS destroy a Lancet launcher today. Lancets actually have to be launched off of a catapult, like some models of the Ukrainian drone. And so finding these launchers and destroying them stops a decent amount of Russian recon missions from happening. We can see them lining up the hit by the HIMARS with this drone. And oh man, I'm telling you, they get no respect around here. They tried to set up a launcher, they got launched into orbit. Oh man, I'm telling you, it's terrible, real terrible. Oh man. But we can see the smoke plume rising up, and we can see the Russian souls rising down to the pits. But anyways, moving on from that and out of the pits, we're going to be moving a little bit further north towards Ghillie, where we saw that the Ukrainians have come up with an interesting way to use the AMX-10. It wasn't the way described in the manual, but it will work. It's an AMX-10 being used as an indirect fire artillery piece. I like the sound of that gun. And so with that, that's the end of that clip, but pretty interesting. Moving on from that and on into the area of Robotny, we have not seen a lot of frontline movement over the past 24 hours, and I'll be showing you. Here we have it. There was this little move right up here along the highway around Novopurkovka, but it doesn't really seem to be anything major, and it also isn't shifting around Russian lines. So I think that's largely just a deep state update. We're not hearing a lot from the Ukrainian forces down here in this oddly, perfectly dually spherical shaped part of the line. It's reminding me of a guy who used to live at some point in the war. He was a guy that everyone thought was a terrible dude, and he really was, but, you know, he ended up getting killed by his own leader. Some of y'all might know who I'm talking about, Nutsack. And this part of the front line is reminding me of good old Nutsack. Rest in peace, gone and forgotten pretty quickly. No one's even really talking about that guy anymore. He just kind of died, and that was it. And the Wagner
That's what you think.
Well, that's what they want you to think. But anyways, moving on from that on into the clips. While we didn't see a lot of frontline movement, we did see a lot of Ukrainian action on film today. For example, this column of BMPs taking a moment before they move on into what's most likely the Verbove area. We can see the entire convoy has come to a stop. We see folks just kind of stretching their legs and getting a little bit of a break. This is the Ukrainian equivalent to a rest stop. A road chef, as they call it in the United Kingdom, or here in the United States, it is just called a rest stop.
Relief.
Hold until relieved. Hold until relieved. But anyways, moving on from that and on into the next one, we also got to see near Novoprokopivka another turret toss. This is the third one of the day, by the way. Just keep that in mind. 3 turret tosses in a single day. We have been blessed. Or as they said in the Monty Python movie, The Search for the Holy Grail, a blessing from the Lord. But anyways, here's the clip. Oh! That is a 10 out of a 10 right there.
That is, I gotta say.
Airtime, the flip, immaculate. Immaculate.
A damn jolly good show.
Yes, quite. Me and my beautiful wife, Camilla, we love to watch the turret tosses. They're absolutely wonderful. Is that your turret? Is that your turret?
But anyways, moving on from that, wonderful to see. And we're now going to be moving on into our next clip, where we also got to see Russian forces getting hit. And I'm telling you, Russian forces get hit more than stepchildren these days, but check it out. Damn, man. We're delivering raw lines tonight. And we can see the FPV drone fly on in there like a little bee, exploding down there. We can see another one. And
I have to say, this hits harder than the Platinum Jubilee.
I have to tell you that this is hitting harder than Handel's 9th composition. Absolutely charming.
But anyways, they took out the MTLB, and they were able to knock out some additional Russian forces. Moving on from that and a little bit behind the lines to the village of Ultra-Tuvate, we got to see that a BM-21 Grad was destroyed inside of its bay. We believe that this was destroyed by a HIMARS strike. We're not exactly certain. It is close enough to the front line that NIM 777 with an Excalibur round could have also done this as well. But overall, it's nice to see that you're able to knock out another MLRS. It's harder to take out MLRSs than it is towed artillery pieces, because MLRSs naturally are much more available to shoot and scoot, and the turnaround time is incredibly quick for them. They set up in like a minute, They fire, and then they are able to move in about 20 seconds after that. So it's very hard to be able to find one stationary to destroy, and they were able to get this one while it was sitting inside of its garage for the most part. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in Ultra Tuvate, and we're now going to be moving out of the southern front and towards the area of Kherson, because we actually had 2 little clips here today that were just wild. This first one was absolutely insane. It was an Mi-24 firing off its rockets, but this Ukrainian drone was watching it, and it almost got shot down by the Mi-24's rockets. Just watch. It's insane. So there's the helicopter. You see it tilt up. And there's the rockets whizzing literally like just feet by the drone. Look at that. That's wild.
I think that was close.
That was really close. Now you see the Mi-24 popping off its flares and almost like driving along the ground nearly, it seems.
Yeah, it looks so weird. It's not really flying. It's like floating or something.
And there it goes. Floating in some kind of a weird and unnatural looking way. I don't know what's wrong with that helicopter, but
it's like swimming like a shark in the air.
Yeah, it kind of is, isn't it? You know, it's just kind of like floating along a little.
Yes, quite. It's swimming around like one of those large fish-like creatures. One of those abominations.
But anyways, moving on from that, I don't know.
Had to turn Australian for that one. Oh, did you see the shark over there floating around in Ukraine?
Wait a minute, no, Matthew. We gotta really go Australian. Oh, I'm being what?
Get your hands off my...
You're arresting me for enjoying a meal, a succulent Chinese meal? Why, how dare you, sir?
Waiting my...
Wait a minute, no, notice the headlock here. Gentlemen, notice the headlock. This is democracy manifest. Why,
I see you know your judo well.
I dare you, sir. I see you know your judo well. Good one. I say, get your hands off my... But anyways, moving on from that and into the town of Zelenskyy, we got to see a Russian officer get smacked today. Who wants to watch a Russian officer driving off? Actually, it was an FSB officer. More so, this adds a lot more intrigue to the story. Who wants to see him get smacked? Here's the video. There they go in their Toyota Corolla. Oh, bleh. Oh, bleh. It's like the 4th of July, but the firecrackers are pretty large. But great to see that they were able to take out a couple of FSB officers today. Don't know how they did it. It almost seemed like it was some kind of a small mine on the road. Like, look at that. Oh, that got him. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Pretty wild to see. Don't really see car bombings happening a lot. I heard that the Rob pulled up today in the area of Zelenskyy, and apparently they're hard at work. But anyways, moving on from that clip, it's now time for us to move to Kyiv and cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on day 561 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
I wish you health, dear Ukraine.
Oh no! Dude, I was muting my mic already and everything. This is only a 2-minute long speech. Oh, goodness.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Короткий звіт за цей день. Привітав наших розвідників, наших героїв із Днем воєнної розвідки України. Усі ми розуміємо, наскільки вони круті, наші розвідники, справжня сміливість, потужні результати. Подякував ГУР від усієї України, представив сьогодні офіційно нового міністра оборони України Рустема Умєрова. Сильна людина, системна, добре знає сферу оборони, від перших днів повномасштабної війни задійний в переговорах щодо озброї для України. Дуже чутливі переговори, результативні. Займається перемовинами і щодо звільнення наших людей з російського полону. В цьому у Рустема теж є важливі для України результати. Він може перезавантажити роботу Міністерства оборони, саме це зараз потрібно. Із міжнародних переговорів сьогодні розмова із прем'єр-міністром Великої Британії Сунаком та прем'єр-міністром Ізраїлю Нетаньяху. Звичайно, головна тематика – це безпека. Провів кілька важливих нарад саме щодо нашої міжнародної роботи. За цей вересень маємо досягти кількох цілком конкретних результатів в роботі з партнерами. Це стосується і нової зброї для України. Готуємо новини. І наших дипломатичних зусиль, щоб об'єднати ще більше країн світу заради відновлення миру на всій нашій землі. Готуємо більше світового тиску на Росію. І наші воїни, нацгвардійці, 12-та бригада спеціального призначення, яка б'ється на сході нашої держави, а також 3-та та 15-та бригади Нацгвардії, які воюють на південних напрямках. Я дякую вам, воїни, за дуже результативне знищення окупантів. А результати – це те, що зараз необхідно Україні від усіх, на всіх рівнях, від усіх, хто воює заради України, хто працює заради України, хто підтримує нас у світі. Слава усім, хто саме так своїми особистими результатами наближає нашу спільну перемогу. Слава Україні!
And Heroem
Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and that is the end of the halftime show as well. Zelensky's speech serves as a halftime show for us, so that way we can manage some things in the background, going to the restroom really, so that way we can then run the next part of the stream. And speaking of which, it is now that time. We are going to be moving into the second part of the stream, addressing all of the super chats that have come in, and also all of the live chats as well. I got to thank everyone in advance for sending in a super chat, and we'll of course be thanking each of y'all personally, as is the channel's policy for the large part, for the support, because y'all are helping this channel to be possible. And I got to thank everyone for continuing to support us, because running this channel is a pretty big adventure. It's a pretty big thing to run, really. I'm trying to come up with words, and I'm having a hard time with it. But y'all's support helps us to be able to do this. And of course, without y'all's continued support, this wouldn't be possible for us to continue to have pizza, coffee, and all kinds of other things that help us to keep this thing rolling. And so thank you to everyone once again. And of course, we will also be addressing the live chats as well. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and jumping into our first poll, it says NATO says Russia's drone attack on Romania was unintentional and just an accident. And what are your thoughts? 39% said it's irrelevant, it's still an attack. 35% said, nah, it's pretty bad, but we can let it go. 17% said, oh, that's a relief, no problem. And 9% said unsure. And the first option was a little bit sarcastic, because obviously, even though it is unintentional, it is nonetheless an attack, and accidents can't just be brushed under the rug completely. There has to be some accountability for it anyway. In this instance, I would say it's bad, but we should let it go. I would like to have seen maybe Article 4 invoked, so that way at least a message was sent to Russia that we take it seriously. Obviously, don't invoke Article 5 or something like that. No civilians were hurt, nobody was injured, so obviously that aspect's not there, but it's pretty weak the way they responded to it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And can you reread that poll prompt again?
It's currently up.
Oh, on God? NATO says Russia's drone attack on Romania was unintentional, just an accident. Thoughts? Probably was, because from what we understand, I think it was shot down or critically damaged, and then it blew up on Romania. But still, that is a blatant admission. Of course, you know, once again, I've just got to say this, y'all, because you know it's something that always is interesting to me. We said it days ago that thing blew up in Romania. And then everyone in the world went, no, it didn't, because the Romanian government said it didn't. And now everyone's admitting that it blew up in Romania, including the Russians themselves. Now they're saying that it wasn't intentional, but that means that it did blow up on Romania. It's just that they didn't mean for it to. I would say that it's irrelevant. It's still an attack. I mean, why in the world are there drones even flying in Romanian airspace for them to end up blowing up on the surface of Romania? That's really what the question should be. It shouldn't be whether it was intentional or not. So I would say it's still an attack. I would have to go with the large majority of y'all. Some of you, an equally large majority of y'all said that it wasn't that bad and we could just let it go. And we could, but I don't really like the message that sends. I feel like things like that should have a serious response rather than a mild one, because we don't ever want the Russians to think that they could possibly just do bizarre stuff and then possibly get away with it, because then we're going to end up with a situation we really don't want to be in, and then we'll have to step up and deal with that at that moment. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, addressing this absolute humdinger of a poll, it says, is it preferable/acceptable to conscript women into combat roles in the modern era? 70% said yes, 30% said no. And I have no comment. Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, what happened? Reread the line. I don't even know why I forgot that prompt. You didn't even address it, and then I just sat there and I didn't even remember it. So what was the prompt?
And the prompt is it preferable/acceptable to conscript women into combat roles in the modern era?
I'm not going to address that one. That is up to the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll, which is our last one, says the U.S. tells Russia that if they're upset over depleted uranium ammo being sent to Ukraine, then withdraw your tanks. And what are your thoughts? 46% said U.S. is letting loose. Nice. 36% said Russia is feinting an issue here. 10% said it's a weak attempt by the U.S. at a burn. And 7% said unsure. And I think it is basically Russia feinting an issue here. Obviously, depleted uranium ammunition does have a safety concern to it, but considering the foul conditions the Russians are in just as an army in general, I would say that DU ammunition is probably the least of their concerns. So, that is what it is. The U.S. is trying to make a weak attempt at a burn with that because obviously they're not serious. Russia isn't going to withdraw their tanks. Kind of a weak attempt, but, they give it a shot. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's a stupid argument to make that depleted uranium shells or anything to frown upon. It's depleted uranium. It's the whole reason that depleted uranium shells exist. It's not radioactive or anything. The radioactive elements are largely non-existent in uranium-235. It's a very minute amount. The whole thing about using uranium is that uranium is an incredibly dense metal, and you want the metals that you make the darts out of that make an armor-piercing fin stabilized discarding sabot, what it is, you want that metal to be as dense as possible. And uranium is about as dense as you can get it. Tungsten is the next best thing, but it still is not as good as uranium. And so that's why we are sending depleted uranium shells. The qualities of the metal and its rigidity is what gives it its penetrating power through armor. So I don't really think there's a good argument to be made there that they shouldn't be sent, because that would be like arguing, oh, you shouldn't be able to use armor-piercing rounds in small arms in war because that may technically lead to health side effects for the people getting shot by it. Well, one, it's war, and that's a pretty normal thing to find on the battlefield as an armor-piercing round. And two, I have a feeling they're probably already screwed over health-wise by being hit by an armor-piercing bullet than just the armor-piercing bullet being an armor-piercing bullet. The same rule applies to a tank's shell, in my opinion. The crew will be dead from overpressure before they ever get killed from the uranium, the small radioactive traces of uranium that would be floating around inside of the compartment at that point. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is actually not a poll at all. We're moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have that very generous $100 donation from YB Watchin'. Hey! And this is actually their first ever Super Chat on the channel. So big thanks for that massive support as your first support. And sadly, there is no comment to address. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, YB Watchin', and your first support ever. We've had so many people over the past few days step up and support the channel for the first time ever. And I gotta thank everyone who's been doing that, like you, YP Watching, because folks like you help this channel to keep on running and to be possible. Of course, it's been a little bit more difficult, actually, over the past few months, really, about the past three and a half months or so, because of lies that were spread by someone out there on the internet, who apparently is once again attempting to spread those lies tonight. And I got to thank everyone who's continued to support this channel and help us to keep running, and also completely disregarded the lies, because y'all are helping us to be able to keep this project running and keep the thing possible. We've never made a pretense whatsoever since the start of the war where the support goes. We have always been clear that this support helps to run the channel. And I thank everyone who understands that, like you, YB Watching, and helps to support us, because you're helping us to be able to do this as a full-time job and to be able to do everything in the background that makes this possible, like getting pizza, coffee, being able to do all of the boring stuff like pay bills and stuff like that. You're making this possible for us, YB Watching. And I got to thank you so much once again for that. Because if it wasn't for folks like you and everyone else who supports this channel, we wouldn't have been able to keep this thing running. And I thank you also for disregarding all the lies that have been put out there that for some reason some people decided to believe, although there's no proof to even back up the claims. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you for being an absolute legend. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $50 Super Chat, also extremely generous, from Aaron Shu. I hope I'm saying your last name properly. I think I had a hard time with it last time as well, but thank you very much, Aaron, for that support. He says, I would think if Russia were to send air defense to the western border areas, now would be pointless at the moment, unless they can set up outside of drone range while still being useful. And thoughts?
Let's see. I think if let me make sure to double read this one to make sure I get it exactly right. If Russia were to send air defense to western border areas, now would be pointless at the moment unless they can set up outside the drone range while still being useful. It would be somewhat useful for them in some instances. I would probably suggest not to put pantsirs in the area, maybe shilkas. Not trying to give the Russians any ideas, but shilkas would probably be the best suited to the job of shooting down drones. But you're largely right. Most of the drones appear to not even be detected on radars anyways. So most air defenses that revolve around radar would probably be useless. You would probably have to count on Shilka crews spotting the drones with the naked eye and then shooting it down. Or you would also have to count on just ground crews with manpads spotting the drones and then shooting them down. The Ukrainians have gotten really good at doing that because they learned throughout the war that a lot of radars just can't really possibly pick up some targets, so then they send out manpad crews to fill in the gaps. But I would have to largely agree, it wouldn't really be that useful to send higher-end systems like the Pantsir into that area, but it probably would be a little bit more useful to the Russians to send Shilkas or manpads into the area if they actually wanted to try and mount some kind of an anti-drone defense net in that area with air defense. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I was able to address that fairly well, at least from how I understand the air defense systems work. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Andrea Fed, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Andrea, for that support. And she said, how's Matt feeling tonight? And chooses a question from the live chat. And I gotta say that I am feeling better today. I'm obviously not fully better. I'm sure y'all can hear that in my voice. But it's been a tough week for me because I got ill like last Thursday. I had to skip 2 days of law school, which was terrible because it's still the first month of law school. And also I had to go to the doc over the weekend. They didn't really know what was wrong. And that's not good when a doc says, oh, we never seen nothing like this before. so that's basically what they said. And they just put me on some antibiotics just to try to see if that fixed it. It really didn't fix it. And I'm getting better on my own, thank goodness. So hopefully I keep improving, but thank you for asking. And we will grab a question from the live chat. And it goes to Wanderin, who says, do you think the unsung saboteurs starting fires in Russia deserve a shout out? And may they stay unseen and unknown as they continue their work?
And yes, they always deserve a shout out. And that's also why we always show the work that they've been able to do inside of Russia, even when it's smaller stuff like just attacking signal boxes alongside the railroad. It's big efforts when you really think about it. They're taking a massive risk. If they're ever captured by the Russian government, they will probably go to prison for 20 to 50 years at a minimum, or even life, for sabotage and also treason against the Russian Federation. And they're taking a huge risk. And I always make sure to show great appreciation to those guys because those folks are a big part of why the Ukrainians have been doing so well. They've been the unsung heroes behind the lines, stopping Russian supplies from arriving as efficiently as they could be, stopping entire factories from operating, damaging the Russian economy. They have done a massive amount for Ukraine, and I think they deserve a great deal of praise. And I think that after the war, the Ukrainians should make some monuments and statues to honor all of those partisans who went and risked their own lives to make sure to help Ukraine have a fighting chance in this war at the very start of it, and to help them to victory near to the end of it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, and I hope that does address that really well, because I think that they deserve all of the praise that one could get, much like the foreign volunteers that are also fighting Ukraine and the Ukrainian citizens themselves. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, big shout out to BC Skyman, who's already left for the night. And sadly, BC did not leave a comment either, but thank you very much for that $20 donation. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman. I hate to hear that she got off already, because I always love to know that we can address the messages while everyone's on. But I hope you're watching this tomorrow, and I got to thank you so much, BC Skyman, for, of course, always helping this channel to keep on running and helping to support us, because you have helped to make this channel possible for so long. While people have come and gone, and and some of them have just ended up disappearing. Like, we don't know where some viewers just went. They've just disappeared like 8 months ago and never came back. You've always been here, BC Skyman. Much like Jay Bagwell, and loads of other folks. And for some reason, whenever I try and start listing off names, I can only think of one extra name, and I'm like, oh. But I promise y'all, I know y'all's names when I see them. Like Butchie777, who's also been around since the very beginning. And I got to thank all of y'all who have stuck with this channel through thick and thin as we've been covering the news, as we've gone through Ukraine's highs and lows in this war, for sticking with us, and of course, supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because y'all have made this thing possible, and y'all are what make this channel so unique and special at the exact same time. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, BC Skyman. I hope that addresses that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Plant Lady, who also puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Plant Lady, for that support. And she says, in support of my favorite channel and a great group of LSA family, Slava Ukraine, and take a question from the chat.
Hey, and thank you for the kind words as well. And thank you for saying that we're your favorite, because all of y'all are our favorite. I mean, you know, I've seen other communities out there. You know, I watch YouTube a good bit, and I've never seen the community that makes me go, wow, that's an amazing community. I would rather have that community over this one. I've never seen a community that
this
makes
community
me
is harmonious. It's not full of bigotry. It's all in support of Ukraine and no partisan politics, which is lovely. I've come to enjoy that rule quite well.
Oh yeah, you know, and that's one thing I think is wonderful about this channel too, is that folks like you who enjoy this channel so much to support us, y'all have helped us to do something that you don't even see in the modern world anymore, which is to completely avoid politics. We've never even touched on partisan politics. We've never picked a side. We have never spoken in support or condemnation of any political side. And that's largely in opposition to everyone out there now. You can go to gaming channels and there's politics there. You can go to really any other Ukraine war channel and there's clearly a political lean to each of them in one way or another. You know, and of course I would not be wrong to say that there are people on every side that support Ukraine, but their leans are obvious and also they make statements on it. But y'all's support has helped us to do something that is just truly unique, which is to not even talk about American politics. And Matthew at the beginning actually thought, and also Matthew's thought, that a lot of things on how I ran this channel at the beginning were a little weird, but over time he's started to see why running it that way is a great way to do it, and why it makes this channel so unique and so nice. You finally get away for just a little bit from all of the normal squabble that millions of people are in every single day, saying the exact same stuff that's just unoriginal, boring, and bland, and doesn't even really change anything, and everyone just gets to come here and listen to the news. That's it.
I thought at the beginning that people would, you know, hear out points, but I was very wrong. Now if we touch anything even remotely close to politics, it goes berserk, and we don't even actually make a statement about anything. So definitely, politics is not a good thing. And I've seen other channels, specifically one, try to incorporate elements of politics in the midst of Ukraine support, and that never goes well. It always ends up in a disaster every single time, and it's insanity to repeat the same thing over again that doesn't work. And of course, the insane person keeps repeating it over again. It doesn't work well for them.
Oh, I mean, honestly, they're not even the only person who's done that. I've seen almost every single YouTuber but us talk about American politics and really pick a side at some point, one point or another. And I just find that so weird, because I remember back in the day, you know, it was, and when I say back in the day, I mean like just 6 or 7 years ago, people revolted. Almost everyone universally revolted about the idea of politics being in practically everything. And a lot of people revolted about all of the news companies that were really starting to take very heavy swings in one direction or the other politically. And I remember that was a huge deal back in the day. And now people have largely forgotten about that, and everyone gets involved in the rat race of talking about useless things and acting like their one statement will make a change when it's not even election season. And I think it really is something truly amazing that this channel has existed for 2 straight years now, and it's never made a political lean in one direction or the other. And I'm not just saying that to, you know, toot the whistle for our channel and act like we're unique. Y'all have helped that to be possible. You know, other people out there, they say that stuff largely to try and drum up a certain kind of viewership that they think is their demographic. I don't do that. I don't care if I see a major lean in our community in one direction or the other. Hell, I don't even want to know about it. I don't even want to hear what people's political opinions are. If you support Ukraine, that's all that matters. And I think that's what's so special about this channel, is that no other channel out there has a community that is truly as diverse as ours. There are people with different jobs, different positions and statuses in life, different political opinions entirely from different nations around the world of all kinds of races and cultures that are all in this channel at the exact same time. It's something you won't see anywhere else. And I honestly think that if you were to talk about America at all, is what America really is. It is a melting pot. And as long as people don't go and try and focus on it or try and divide the groups, it works incredibly well, and it's an incredibly harmonious thing, and it's what America really is. And I feel like everyone in the modern world on both sides has ended up losing that concept completely. But still, thank you so much for the support and the kind words, because folks like you who appreciate this channel so much to just flatter us to hell and back with such kind words have helped us to be able to make this channel the way it is and to be able to enforce our own rules like no politics. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much for that support. They said, jaga jaga. Off, let's see. Let me see what that says. It's been a while since I've read German off, because I used to actually speak German slightly. Very slightly. Not that type, but let's see here. Translate from German. This is just sagt in German. It's actually, I think they might have messed something up there, because I don't think that's actually a German word, because they couldn't translate it.
Let's see. I'm trying to find it really quickly. Let's see here.
I'll put it in the chat, and just a disclaimer, I don't know what it says, so, you know, there you go. It's in the chat.
On German, I don't know what that last word is. I know that the first part is on German something. Let me type that word.
Just shocked. I think that might be like trying to say what you're saying, like verlagen.
Let's see. Let me check though.
It doesn't blend or translate.
Let's see here. I'm trying to find something on it. Let's see.
Oh,
I can't. No. But let's see here. I'm still trying to find out what that. One second, everyone. I want to take a moment to actually figure out what that word really means. By the way, in case y'all are wondering, we have a test tomorrow at law school. It's the first test of the entire semester in any class. Hopefully you'll ace it, but let me see if I can figure out what this means. Can't find the word anywhere at all, actually. So, sadly, don't know what the last word means. It's on German something, but nevertheless, I do thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. While we don't know what the last word in that super chat is, it is helping this channel to keep on running, and I do thank you for the support and helping the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel to keep the gears greased and turning. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jose Diaz, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Jose, as well, for that support. He says, Puerto Rico loves Ukraine. And thanks to the Enforcer Matt, and LSA for supporting our Ukrainian brothers and sisters.
And thank you so much for the support, Jose Diaz. Of course, our commandant of the Puerto Rican division of the Lee Spring Army, a Lee Spring Army contingent that hopefully will continue to grow. And also, I got to thank you, Jose Diaz, for being around forever. For literally ever. And I gotta say, it's great to have you here tonight. And also, great to hear from you a little bit, too. And I would have to say, not just the Puerto Ricans love Ukraine, really the entire world is behind Ukraine and supporting them, except for the Russians, the Chinese, the Venezuelans, the Cubans, and the North Koreans. Rather than them, everyone else in the world is largely in massive support of Ukraine. And I gotta say, it's wonderful to know that folks from all over the world support Ukraine through and through until the very end, including our commandant of Puerto Rico. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Jose Diaz, and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you have made it possible for us to continue to tell the brave and amazing tales of all of the Ukrainian soldiers and citizens as they continue to weather their way through this war and stand against the Russian tide. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that further well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Gotta say, big shout out to Jose Diaz and Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico.
Is it Puerto Rico? I don't know why he says it like that, but that's the way he says it. And moving on to our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from Slova Ukraini Max. And thank you very much for that support as well. And he said, Enforcer, did you see or hear about the Russian video of an ambush of Ukraine soldiers traveling in the north in civilian vehicles They were ambushed and 50 soldiers of Ukraine were slaughtered, and the video is on Telegram.
I have not seen that video clip, and usually I see them all, and sometimes well, actually, I'll be honest, we usually end up not showing those, one, because they're usually graphic, and two, also, there are soldiers from the Ukrainian army watching this channel, and I don't really, while we're reporting the news, I don't really want them to see something like that, because I know of at least a few dozen Ukrainian soldiers that do watch this show. So I didn't see that to even report on it in the first place, but every once in a while, if that is an event that did happen, I'll have to go looking for it. Things like that do happen occasionally, and it's unfortunate to hear that, but hopefully the Ukrainians can end up exacting vengeance for the 50 lost Ukrainian soldiers. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and also sharing with us a little bit of info that I didn't hear up until now. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Richard Bray, who puts in a $20 donation, as well as Susan Reichel, who put in a $10. And neither one left a comment, but thank you both very much for the super stickers and the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank both of y'all for your super stickers. Y'all are helping this channel to keep rolling and always throwing in cool little images too. And if folks like y'all continue to help this channel and support us to keep this thing running, it will be possible for us to keep this thing rolling on into the future. It's truly amazing to think, and this is also something very unique about this channel as well, is that this channel has run these streams ad-free and sponsor-free for 561 days. No other channel out there has done that, from what I understand. And if they have, we were still the first. Because I have to preface that with that statement, because I think there may have been another channel out there that popped up around midpoint of last year or the autumn of last year that also runs everything ad-free. Well, their streams ad-free. I don't know about their videos. But, still, we were the first. And y'all have helped us to keep this thing the way it is. And tonight I'm kind of focusing on that a lot because we never really talk about that much. We're always talking about y'all help the channel to keep running and help us to pay the bills. But it's not only that. Y'all help us to keep this channel as special as it is. There are so many things about this channel that are truly unique compared to every other one out there. There is no other channel that runs entirely on super chats and entirely on viewer generosity. There are a lot of channels out there that have channel memberships. They also have super chats. They have, hell, they have Patreons. We have a Patreon, but we only do that for videos, and we don't even plug that much in the video. It's just kind of like a quick mention at the beginning. There's a lot of channels out there that just go to town monetizing the hell out of this thing. And that's the most ironic thing, is that for some reason this one person wants to give us crap about how much we monetize our channel, and then they take the example of us receiving super chats, which is us hardly even monetizing the channel compared to what other people do. And especially them. I mean, hell, they have memberships, super chats, let's see, what else? Damn, they have like damn near everything. Ads too. I mean, everything's has ads running on it over there, including live streams. I mean, everything, literally everything. And then for some reason, we're the people who are trying to suckle off of the war. And and anyways, with that, moving on from that, because I don't want to harp on that too much. The guy's a blithering idiot, like we say. He really is. It's a fact at this point. But with that, I got to thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. Because you folks, while you don't leave it comments, y'all support this channel and y'all help us to remain the Enforcer. If it wasn't for y'all's support, the Enforcer would be like every other channel. It wouldn't be that unique. It wouldn't be that original. It wouldn't have the neat rules that it has. And so thank y'all so much once again. And I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, shout out to Troy Wilson once again for putting in a second super chat of the night for a $50 donation. And no comment to address, but big thanks to you, Troy. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Troy Wilson, and helping this channel to keep on running. You got a pair going legitly insane inside of a city. And I gotta say, thank you for the support, and thank you for the belligerent pair. That's what we're going to call that super sticker from here forward, is belligerent pair. And thank you so much once again for enjoying this channel enough to help us to keep the gears turning and the fires burning. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Duncan VR, who puts in a $20 donation. And he says, Bob Muba, quack, Matt cough. Enforcer said something. Matt said, meow. Woof. Enforcer mentioned and mentioned elephant. Matt made elephant noise, question mark. I particularly haven't yet. And he says Kermit is still in Romania. Baba. Oh, man. Oh, wait a minute. I did that wrong. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oink. No respect. Rough. I've been here since day 4. And Duncan has been here since day 4. He has been. He's been here since day 4. I don't know what day he got possessed to start doing the animal noises. I don't know. But he did someday, and it stuck ever since. So big thanks to Duncan, and thank you very much for that support.
Thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR, and helping the channel to keep on running. And of course, throwing in the traditional animal noises. And Kermit is still in Romania. He's kind of like Ceausescu, but hopefully he doesn't get gunned down at the end of the whole thing. You know, it's kind of bad. But still, thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on rolling. And oh man, I'm telling you. And you have been here since day 4. And, you know, it's so crazy to me. And honestly, I don't say this enough. I cherish the viewers who have been around forever and are a part of the old guard, because there are so many viewers that ended up not making the course. They either got burned out from the war and left, and, you know, and I can remember some of the jokes that were here. Maybe they're still here, maybe they just don't talk a lot in the live chat, but Sylvia the Sockeye Salmon, Dick Cheney, there's just a couple of jokes that used to show up in the super chats that folks would send in that were around back then. And now they're not. They disappeared. And also folks like Zeta Lane and Mark Bohychuk. You know, people who were around at the very beginning, but over time they just eventually disappeared because the war just got tiresome to them, and it was just too much to emotionally handle. So it really is something that I just greatly cherish, that folks like you, Duncan VR, have been around since day 4 and have stayed with us the entire time, because, you know, while it's, of course, we're always going to be here and always covering the news, it makes us so happy to know that there are folks who are here with us every single day as we cover it as well. And so thank you so much once again, Duncan VR, not just for throwing in the animal noises and always having a funny super chat for us to read off, but also being a true one and an old guard. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much as well, Margaret, for that support. And it said, I'm making Anzac cookies, biscuits. Fun fact, cooked to raise money for World War I soldiers, and the ones sent to the Anzacs were rock hard, and so these soldiers made porridge out of them, and I appreciate you.
And thank you so much for the support. And also, that's really cool to hear that, and if I'm hearing that correctly, Matthew, they cooked meals for World War I soldiers?
I believe so.
I'm guessing World War I veterans, because if you were cooking meals in 1916, you'd be a fossil by now. You'd be like 110 or something. And if you are 110, that's absolutely nuts. But if I'm hearing that right, and let me make sure to go through and find that one to read exactly. Let's see here. Let's see. Cooked to raise money. Oh, Anzac biscuits. Is that like hardtack? Let me go pull that up. Anzac biscuits. It's not hardtack. It's something different. I've heard of the Anzac biscuit before. I've never noticed, though, that they're different than hardtack. I always thought that was just another word for hardtack. But really cool to know that you're making them, and I hope that they turn out well. And also, really neat to hear that you cooked to raise money for World War I soldiers, because the soldiers from the Anzac forces that landed at Gallipoli ended up probably in the most brutal theater of World War I that there was. Gallipoli was the worst by far, in my opinion. It beats the Somme, it beats Verdun, it beats everything. It was truly hell on earth in such a small area. All of the suffering and carnage and the death of hundreds of thousands on both sides was just in this area right here. And they only made it about up this far, right about here. And then they got pushed back. So, you know, it was horrendous and it was terrible. And I think that's really good to know that you are raising money for those soldiers of the First World War in their memory. And also, thank you so much for appreciating the channel and helping us to keep it running. Me being an avid historian and also a huge person into World War I think that's amazing to know that you're doing such a kind thing to remember and also help out the soldiers of the First World War. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Raphael Aharoni, who puts in a $20 donation.
Hey!
Excuse me. And he does not leave a comment, but that is his first ever super chat. He has the #1 with balloons around it. So big thanks to Raphael and Enforcer. What say you?
And thank you so much, Raphael Aharoni, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It's your first time supporting the channel. And hey, by the way, Raphael, if you want, you can always throw in a little comment to your super chat if it is your first time super chat. And so you may or may not know, or you may have chosen to not leave a comment, but I am always over the top excited to always address anyone's comments, especially when you're helping the channel to keep rolling. And so thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for helping this thing to keep going, and thank you so much for finding the Lee Spring Army and this channel worth supporting at all. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Craig Platel, who puts in a 10 and says, BMP-3 has seating forward of the engine. The benches you see are actually floor over and on the sides of the engine. Look up the BMP-3 interior schematic and you'll see the seats for the troops.
BMP-3 interior. And let me go type that in, and hopefully we'll get to see. And let's see here. It does appear that you are correct. Let me go look at that again. Huh. That's interesting. Because I swore that I've seen some Russian infantry riding in this thing in the little, like, tailgate area. That would be weird if they were, because there are clearly seats in there. Here's an interior schematic of the BMP-3 right here. And you can see 5 chairs for 5 infantrymen to ride in the back. Then you have 2 for the crew, and then 1 here. And I don't know if these are infantry seats. They might be. But anyways, I do thank you for the support and sharing that with me, because the last time we saw a BMP-3, we saw the Russians riding in the back in this tailgate thing. So maybe they don't know about the seats, or maybe all the seats were taken. But thank you for sharing that with me, because now it's a little less stupid. But still, I don't really like the design all too much. But thank you for clarifying that nevertheless. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, Enforcer, in the meantime, I think we better put a super chat cutoff on the thing, because we have about 20 left, and we're running low on time.
Oh, goodness. We are... wait, I can't do that voice on stream. But anyways, we are going to have to put a cutoff on the super chats. We have to get up incredibly early in the morning tomorrow, both of us, to be able to go to law school, and we are going to be taking the first test of this semester. So I want to make sure that I'm awake enough to be able to take the test and then pass out right afterwards. So from this point forward, we will not be reading off super chats. If Matthew, if you can occasionally put that inside of the live chat saying there's been a cutoff, no more super chats, that hopefully will stop people from sending them in, because we will not be able to read them off beyond this point. And so with that, Aaron Shu just threw in a $10 super chat right then and said, correct pronunciation, take one from the live chat, and we will. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and the live chat question goes to Sprague, who says, do you think Ukraine will ask for the money taken from the Russians that are under sanctions to help in the rebuilding of Ukraine after the war ends?
They might possibly do that, but we don't really know. It depends on how the Russian government is standing by the end of the war. But thank you for the support, Aaron Shu, and sponsoring that live chat, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Blue Flam 777, who puts in a 10 and says, I'm moving burp to another priority at the moment. Nothing personal, burp. Love you both, burp, and all you do at the moment. Keep up the good work, Belch. You have my vote, Enforcer. Burp as prez, snort.
And thank you so much for the support, Blue Flame 777. And also, it's perfectly fine. I hope you do come back sometime around, because you're also a channel legend that has been around since the dawn of time on this channel. I got to thank you so much once again for the support and also the kind words, and also thank you for encouraging us to keep this thing running and also supporting us, so that way the Enforcer can stay the Enforcer. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And big shout out to Trister1, who puts in a $10 donation without a comment, and thank you very much, Trister, as always, for supporting the channel, and we do appreciate it very much. We also have a 10 from Rider's Eye, who says, could you possibly see what the shortest distance is from the most forward Ukrainian spot is to the Sea of Azov?
Right now, the most forward spot to the Sea of Azov would be about 50 miles. So about 50 miles at its shortest. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, Rider's Eye, and helping the channel to keep on running, and I hope that answered your question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Blue Flam 777 again, who puts in a 10 and says, my Patriot is better than your S-400. Niner. Bad guys. Question to the chat.
Oh, man. Well, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And, Dive, dive, dive. I don't know what the 999 was about, but dive, dive, dive. And so thank you so much once again for the support, Blue Flame. I hope that addresses that somewhat well, and we will get a live chat. So with that, what do we got?
This one goes to Drunky Monkey, who says the mines being dropped from Baba Yaga, are they directional or just big boom in general?
They're just really a big boom. The anti-tank mines usually just blow up in every direction when they explode, so it's not really directional. It's just all over the place. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you for sponsoring the live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Scott, the tall guy, who puts in a 10 and says, sorry for being late, but I'm a big Detroit Lions fan. I'll catch up tomorrow, and please take a live chat question.
And thank you so much for the support. Perfectly fine to be late for a football game. You gotta do the right things at the right time. Speaking of which, where the hell is Fly Eagles Fly? We haven't seen him in a little bit. But still, thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on rolling, because folks like you make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and it's perfectly fine to be late. As long as you're here, we're happy. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the live chat question goes to Avari Mandabratis, who says, would it be more effective to pit a line of armored bulldozers against trenches to bury occupants in their trash?
Possibly would. Problem would be getting those bulldozers to survive long enough to be able to get to the trench that may still be filled with Russians. So that might be a little difficult, but it is not out of the question, and it's entirely possible if done correctly. And so with that, thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Butchie777, who puts in a 10 and says, a small tactical donation to keep the channel running, and please take a succulent question from the live chat and Slav Ukraine.
What are you arresting me for? Enjoying a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? But still, thank you.
Get your hands off my...
Get your hands. And you, sir, are you down there ready to receive my limp? But we gotta cut it all there. But thank you so much, Butchie777, for the small tactical donation to keep the tactical channel running, and we will make sure to take a tactical succulent question from the tactical live chat. And Slavo Ukrainian, thank you so much once again. And with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And the succulent question goes to Ray K, who says, how much is a Patriot system? How much does it cost?
It costs hundreds of millions of dollars, but they come in entire batteries, so there's about 6 launchers in that, and then 4 additional support vehicles, including the radar and fire control system. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Can't get an exact number off the top of my head, but it is a couple of $100 million each. I believe one battery costs about $1 billion, if I'm correct. It's not several $100 million, it's $1 billion for about the whole battery. So with that, I hope that does answer that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Raj Kapoor, who puts in a 10 and says, what do you think the best joint is in America? The best fast food joint in America.
Best joint? I wouldn't know about that, but we know someone who gets that extra sticky up in mini, you know what I mean? Oh, man, I'm telling you. But anyways, fast food joint in America. That's a tough one. Because really, no fast food joint is that good. Gotta be honest. But if I had to pick one... You see, back in the day, it actually would have been Chick-fil-A, because their chicken sandwiches are damn good. You just can't really beat them. But now, having eaten Chick-fil-A a good bit, I'm not really a big fan of it anymore. Like, it's kind of okay. It's something I could really go without. Whataburger. I'm going to go with Whataburger. So with that, what do you think, Matthew?
I would say for fast food, let's see here. For fast food, I'd probably say something along the lines of I would have said Chipotle back in the day, but I don't know anymore.
Man, that's not fast food either.
Man, that was the longest stall I think I've ever done.
Well, with that, I guess that's Matthew's kind of answer to it. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Well, it's fast. It's supposed to be fast. But anyways, moving on to our next one. We have a $10 super chat from Troy Wilson, who says, ANZAC stand for Australia New Zealand Army Corps.
And thank you so much for the support, Troy Wilson. And thank you for saying what that stands for. I've always heard ANZAC, but I've always wondered, what does it mean? And that's kind of what I thought it meant, but I never actually got the exact name for it for some reason. And my one of my major areas that I have read about is World War I, and no one ever really explained what ANZAC meant. I just knew it was the Australians and New Zealanders bunched together. But thank you for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bernard Rubin, who puts in an 8 and says, Russia should invest in that one's a little bit spicy, I gotta say. I don't think I can read that off, but Russia should invest in some protection. And thank you, Bernard, very much for the support, and of course, supporting the channel. And up next, we have an $8 donation from Mr. Buckaroony, who says, got 2 flagpoles outside my house. always the Aussie flag and another, and about to go and throw the Ukrainian flag up again. And I get a lot of beeps from people driving past.
And thank you so much for the support, Mr. Buccarini. That's really cool to hear. Well, actually, a few years ago, well, actually, it's like 6 or 7 years ago, I actually cut down a tree and made my own flagpole. Man, I could tell you about it. It was actually really cool. It was like 30 feet tall, I think. And I like hand did everything. So there was like no like skinning the bark like with a machine. It was all done by hand. Made the flagpole, and I ended up, I think, flying the American flag on that thing for a good while, and then also the Welsh flag. But still, thank you for the support, and a really cool story. I love to hear it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from CK Bold, who wants us to take a live chat question, and of course we will. And we're actually almost running out of live chat questions. We have one from Roger H, who says Ukrainian civilians are being killed almost daily, and how many more will have to die just because some leaders want to drag out the war?
Who knows how many? The answer to that question is one that I wouldn't even have an idea of answering or even know how to answer. So I'd have to declare ignorance on it, but it is a good rhetorical question. And so with that, thank you so much for sponsoring that live chat. Hope we addressed that well. And we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Dragon Ice, who says one of Musk's exes is part of Ukraine she supports.
Noisy. But still, thank you for the support. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Joseph M. Sika, who puts in a $5 donation and says, I want to redact my previous poll. I thought you meant it was good for Ukraine to shut down these satellites because they could track them or listen to them from the sats. And no, that was definitely not a good thing on that part. And Musk did a little oopsie daisy, if you could put it that way, if he actually did it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you for the support to the small guy. You are the small guy of this channel. And also, that was not at all what we were going for. I'm not in agreement at all with Musk shutting down Starlink for any reason to the Ukrainians. It doesn't make any sense at all. And he's been screwing with them really ever since the Starlink system made it over there. But with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And big shout out to Mark Andre Burnett for putting in a 5 without a comment. And thank you very much, Mark, as always, for that support. And we have a 5 from Craig Platel, who says it's not the density of DU, it's the self-sharpening ability. As it goes through the armor, tungsten penetrators to become blunted.
And thank you for the support and sharing that. For some reason, I've got to be honest with you, I didn't know about the self-sharpening abilities. I just knew that the density of the metal was a little bit more from what I heard, but I never heard about the self-sharpening abilities. That's something new. But still, thank you for the support and sharing that little tidbit of info with me. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Sign Fine Bella, who says, sorry that I sent this so late, but happy 2nd anniversary.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for congratulating us on a 2nd anniversary. Folks like you make it possible for us to work year after year and to be able to have a 2nd anniversary. And so thank you so much once again for investing in the future of this channel and helping us to do this. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Blue Flame 777 yet again, who says, let's translate this code. Boogers on a plate.
What? What code is that?
I don't know.
Man, it's getting a little snotty up in here. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that somewhat well. And we are on to the next one.
And we are moving on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. We have Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, and Tightlines LSO. They said Ukraine is bringing the war to the Russians, and this time, not playing games. Slava Ukraine.
Oh, and that's the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct on the 561st day of the war. And so with that, we are now moving on into, due to time constraints, only 3 live chat questions, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. And so we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Barry Woodward, who says, is it true that European countries collectively have provided more funding to Ukraine than the U.S.? And if so, that is a good sign. And I don't think that is true.
Actually, that would be untrue. The United States actually has supported Ukraine by tens of billions more than all of Europe combined. It's something that is a little bit touchy. We actually asked this question before at a specific instance, and it was met with hostility. But the Europeans...
Oh, it's not a pissing contest. Oh.
Yeah, you know, and I was like, okay, I was like, we weren't trying to make it that. We were just asking your opinion, you know, being a European.
Nah, we're all adults here. Let's discuss a question like adults and, you know, analyze it. But, you know, apparently not.
No, you know, I mean, like, oh, easy now. You know, and then, you know, that whole thing happened afterwards. And I was like, hey, dude, did you do that? And then got no response, you know, which was pretty rude. But anyways, moving on from that, and not talking about that too much. Anyways, Europe has not supported Ukraine as much as the United States has. If we were to try and divide it percentage-wise, the United States has provided about 65% of the support. The Europeans have provided about 35%. That's largely what the breakdown looks like right now at the moment. I think that they could move on up. Honestly, they need to move on up in a lot of regards with the Russian threat now rising. A lot of European countries need to start raising their defense spending per GDP percentage to the NATO standard of 2% or more. The Polish are way above that mark. They're at 4%. The Greeks are at 3.5%, and everyone else needs to start getting up towards that direction. So that way, if something happens, everyone isn't racing to react. Everyone is just doing what they need at that moment and not trying to figure out how to get out of a crappy situation. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well from what we know. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night. But really quickly, we will address George A's $10 super chat where he said Musk is not at all a genius when it comes to Ukraine. Also, did not he say he is losing money on Ukraine? He did at some point, and that's why he made them start paying for Starlink, which they've been doing for about a year at this point, which means that he's not losing money. He's actually making money off of them due to that contract, and now he's going to shut it off and act like he has a right to do that, like he has some kind of a benefit or anything in it. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, George A. And with that, we are on to the second to last one of the night.
And this one goes to Mandy Carroll, who says, does anyone know what happened to the child that those Russians left behind at the side of the road a few weeks back?
We don't know. That's probably the sad part of the story, is that could be alive or dead right now. But I think that video, regardless of the fate of that child, shows the reason why the Ukrainians, from a humanitarian aspect, should continue to be supported and continue to push the Russians out. Because imagine how many times that's happened behind the front lines since the beginning of the war. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Avari Mendebratis, who says, is Ukraine experiencing a shortage of man-pads on the front line? It seems it has been a long time since any Russian planes were shot down there, with many counts of incursions.
And I hate to say this, Matthew, for some reason that sounded like Greek to me. Could you reread that one again?
Is Ukraine experiencing a shortage of man-pads on the front line? And it seems like it is.
We don't really know, to be quite honest with you. They may be enduring a shortage of ammunition. We know they're not enduring a shortage of launchers, but it's most likely the ammunition for the man-pads that is missing, if anything. But we don't really know for certain, so I'm actually going to have to declare ignorance on that question, because I don't really have exact empirical information or evidence to say if they are or aren't. But with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. At the peak tonight, there were 6.6 thousand of y'all on, and we are entirely honored to know that we were able to cover the news for 6.6 thousand of y'all live and 32,000 of y'all over the course of this 2.5 hours. I have to say that if I was able to choose anything to do in life at this moment, it would be this. I've been entirely honored for 561 days to be the one covering the news for all of y'all every single day, and hopefully we'll be able to continue on covering the news for each and every one of y'all day in and day out. I've been completely honored to run this channel, and of course I hope that y'all have also been impressed with the news coverage that we've been able to provide. If y'all have, please make sure to subscribe. It doesn't really help out anyway, but it does make us happy when folks subscribe, because it lets us know that people did appreciate it a lot. We run this channel 6 days a week, live stream wise at 10 p.m. Eastern time every single night except for Monday. And we also upload short war summaries that are 10 to 15 minutes long practically every single day possible. Today was not one of those days. But still, thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army will never die.
And good night, LSA. We'll see you all tomorrow night, and go get some of that tactical sleep. Slava Ukraine.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
корабль, иди нахуй.
Запануєм і ми, браття,